Welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast with myself, lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, and my main man, Patrick Davis. Oh, so much to get into on the show. Yes, Texas basketball, they are who we thought they were. We'll get into that coming up. A loss to Baylor on the road, 93-85. Plenty of NFL news, notes, and nuggets to get to. We'll get to that coming up a little bit later on in the show. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll talk some Texas football. A lot of guys from Texas still getting love from the NFL Combine performances. And yes, Arch Manning decides to opt out of the latest college football game, and there are some Longhorn fans that are not too happy about it. We'll get to that coming up here in the first segment as well. Before we get started, let's introduce the co-host of the Rodcast. He is one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. We don't know what the man is paid, but we're pretty damn sure that he's underpaid. We like to call him the Idealionaire. You can call him the real MVP. Ain't no 401k for a hustler, and he is a hustler, man, of many talents. It is my man, Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick?
Man, doing good. It was doing better till about 9:30 last night. Was doing a lot better. Was doing a lot better.
I get it. I know. It, man.
My co-host is a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate that intro, man. It's a nice intro, too. Damn good job on that. I bet Patrick surprised me with that yesterday. That's why he's the real MVP, and we appreciate him. All right, we appreciate you as well. You can hit us up on the text line. That's the best way to keep in touch with us, to get in touch with us. You do it at 447-3776. You also can watch the Rodcast. You can watch the Rodcast. You can go to the links. You can go to YouTube. You can go to the Horn webpage as well. Make it easy on yourself so you can watch and listen, but you also, of course, can listen to us with the Horn app. That's the best way to do it. Just get the Horn app, and then you can have us with you wherever you go around the world. We got people listening from around the world, and we appreciate all those listeners. We have your big fat poll of the day coming up at 6:45. We'll go behind the burn orange curtain next segment. We'll talk about the latest mock drafts. I'm a mock slut. Y'all know that. All right. Anybody throws out a mock draft, I will check it out. But so we'll go into some of the more notable, recognizable draft analysts and their post-combine mock drafts, and where they have the Longhorns, also an all-combine team. I want to check out a little bit too. So we'll talk some Texas football when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. But let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. I guess I may have been trying to prolong this thing, but we got to talk Texas basketball. Texas men's basketball, let me be specific there, because the ladies, they don't disappoint like the men do. Texas loses 93-85 to the Baylor Bears. And the disappointing thing about it, Patrick, is, man, it was like a tale of two halves, right? This is what's that old line from it was the best of times and it was also the worst of times. It felt like that for Longhorn men's basketball last night. They were up 48-40 at half, held at 1 point, had double-digit lead and a 14-point lead in the first half for the Longhorns. Max Asmus was brilliant. No question about it. Put the team on his back. 33 points, season high for him, 5 assists, 4 steals, but at one point things started to unravel in the second half for the Longhorns. One of the main issues was Dylan Dessou. Now, Dylan Dessou had a stomach bug before the game.
Yeah.
They didn't think he was actually going to play in the game. Then Dylan Dessou, he gets an injury. I think the diagnosis was a left sprained knee. He was out for the rest of the game. It was a non-contact injury with about 10 and a half minutes left in the second half. After he goes down, makes the Longhorns a lot easier to defend. They just double Max Asmus, take him out of the game, and the Longhorns did not have an answer for that. And the Baylor Bears end up coming back to win this one 93-85. Patrick, your thoughts? I mean, Baylor just essentially outplayed Texas in several categories. Out-rebounded.
All right, let's start with the beginning. There's a couple issues because they did do the right thing and win against Texas, but the number that you should look at is that Baylor shot 42 free throws in this game. Is that Baylor realized, and Scott Drew was able to go over to the refs at halftime and say, "You're calling this game too loose. Tighten up the calls." And he was able to get the calls the way they won in the second half. They shot 27 free throws in that second half. They didn't outplay Texas in the second half. They got fouls. And Texas, because this has been a problem all year long, and anyone who listens to me in the sports complex knows this, that I hate the fact that Max Asmus and Tyrese Hunter will not go to the lane and draw fouls. And it's Max Asmus is a guy who's made his whole career because he's a smaller guy of avoiding contact and getting away. Tyrese Hunter's also a smaller guy, avoids contact, goes away. Jalen Bridges shot 13 free throws. Jacoby Walter shot 12 free throws. Jaden Nunn shot 6 free throws. R.A.J. Dennis shot 5 free throws. Max Asmus shot 3. Tyrese Hunter shot 2. The reality of the game is Texas outscored on the court playing basketball. They outscored Baylor. Baylor shot double the amount of free throws that Texas did. They were able to get to the line. They realized the game was being called. The game wasn't being called one way or the other. It was just being called tight, which favors Baylor. And they were able to use that in the second half. Now, there's other issues we can get into of the fact that this team, doesn't necessarily have the on-the-court leadership that it's had in years past. Like last year, you had Timmy Allen, you had Marcus Carr, you had Jabari Rice that were on-the-court leaders. This year, it's Dylan Dessou. Max Asmus has not taken over that role. And Brock Cunningham has somewhat lost the team. And, I think the younger guys don't necessarily respond to him the way that the previous team did. So Dylan Dessou is the guy. When he went down, there was no one on that court to pick the team back up and say, let's get into it. They also couldn't play Kendall Weaver because he got in foul trouble. IT Horton fouls out. Caden Shedrick has 4 fouls. Brock Cunningham fouls out. Like, at the end of the game, there was a point where the defense, you were not able to play defense because Baylor was going to initiate contact and they were going to call it. So Baylor puts up 53 points in the second half because they put up 21 points on the free throw line. And then they played, but they shot a worse 3-point percentage in the second half. They shot 14 from 19 from the field because you couldn't play defense when they drove the paint or else it was a foul. It was a frustrating game for Texas. In the first half, you love that Max Asmus was able to get going because he's been having problems against anyone who plays defense. And luckily for him, Baylor doesn't play defense. But the reality was you needed Kendall Weaver to be able to play defense in this game, and he got in foul trouble. Max Asmus was not able to play defense the entire game. He was blown past pretty much every drive and then was sent to the paint where someone else picked up a foul. Dylan Mitchell has just not been good the last 2-3 weeks. He's really fallen off. He ends up with 1 rebound in the game. Like, I get if he, 5 points, I'll deal with Dylan Mitchell. I would have liked him to attack the paint more. But the one rebound, I don't get that in 27 minutes.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of things that go into this. But for people to overreact that this was more than – look, there's not a lot of depth on this team. Like we've said all year, the roster construction of the team is just not what it needed to be. They were expecting to have a couple other guys on the team that decided not to come to Texas at the end of the day. They tried to put it together, but without Dylan Dessou on the court, this team is not a tournament team. And so you have to worry. You have to hope that Dylan Dessou's injury was really minor and that it was more that it was just that he was really sick too, and that it was just everything took out of him. And by the end, the good news was he returned to the huddle late in the game.
Didn't have crutches and didn't have like a sleeve or anything like that. I will say this though, when he goes down with about 10.5 minutes left in the second half, and they start doubling Max Asmus, there's got to be an answer there for Texas. I mean, you can't have one field goal basically in the final 10 to 11 minutes. There was that undefended, field goal late in the game in the final 40 seconds or something like that. Basically, Texas had one field goal late down the stretch after Dylan Dessou gets hurt, and then Max Asmus gets double teamed. Then nobody can pick up the slack.
Yeah,
that's an issue.
Well,
you got to find some way to score. And then, like you said, it will probably be trying to get to the basket, and try to get fouls, at least get to the free throw line. But obviously, Baylor had a different plan.
Well, and there's also the point of Texas is good offensively when their defense is good. Texas scores points in transition. Texas scores points when they get mismatches. If you're constantly coming off of free throws where Baylor resets their defense and can double down on Max Asmus, and you're never getting a mismatch, the team's going to be a lot worse. This offense, again, they just don't have the talent on this team this year. Unfortunately, the fact is Tyrese Hunter has played down. Dylan Mitchell's pulled down. I know that on the text line now, I'm not even looking at it because I'm sure there's plenty of people on there that love to give me grief that RT's a terrible coach, and they're wrong. But that, they want to go into, well, you haven't developed these players. The reality is if Tyrese Hunter doesn't want to go to the paint and get on the ground and fall down, if you want to watch the difference between what those players wanted to give and what they don't, and I don't want to go hard on the players because they're decent players. They just don't want to give up their body. And I get it, But if you watch the announcing, how many times did you hear that's a hard foul? That's a hard foul. And they weren't hard fouls. They weren't. They were guys going straight up and down. And they were bumping bodies, and they go, that's a hard foul. And you go, no, the guy just hit the ground hard.
Yeah.
Like, I get that, but that's how you get foul calls is you go drive the paint, you hit the ground hard. That's what you're supposed to do. And if Tyrese Hunter did that, he'd average 15 points a game.
Initiate contact,
go to the ground, get back up, hit 2 free throws, and walk down to the other end of the court. If he did that, he would average 15 points a game. Teams would look different. He had 12 points last night, hit a couple threes, but he missed too many shots. He would have had 20 last night if he would have gone to the free throw line. Max Abmas would have had 50 last night if he would have gone to the free throw line. Like, that's what I'm saying. It boggles my mind when this offense starts to struggle. They won't go to the free. They will not drive the paint, hit the ground hard, take the foul, and get back up and go back and shoot 2 free throws. They just don't do it. Caden Shedrick was the only guy who consistently initiated contact last night, and he got to the free throw line at least 6 times. He drew 7 fouls in the game.
Yeah,
but
it was something that Rodney Terry talked about over and over again. He mentioned it 3 different times in the post game about the free throw discrepancy that you're mentioning. And even as he's walking out of the press conference, walking off the dais, he says, we've got a good team. We're good. We can play with anybody on any given night. 42 free throws is a lot of free throws.
Yeah. No, and
that
look,
was his last comment.
And I'll tell you this, and this is one thing I'm hoping the SEC is going to be better about. And I don't watch enough SEC to really go down the refs. The Big 12 has an issue with allowing good offensive teams to do this, that they will start to call. And but if you tell me that anybody wants to watch a game with 63 free throws, you're out of your mind. No one wants to watch 40 minutes of basketball where you're averaging more than a free throw and a half a minute. No one wants to watch that. And that's what you saw last night. And so those types of games are just frustrating to watch because you just saw Baylor in the second half. That's all they did. They shot 19 shots in the second half. 19. Texas put up 30. And that's with Baylor having second, third, fourth opportunities on the offensive rebounds, and they still only shot 19
rebounded them 34-20. That's also a problem.
They did, and I mean, in reality, it was 5. It was 5 to 9 on offensive rebounds, but I have it circled on my box sheet score too. 5 offensive rebounds is terrible, but that goes back to Dylan Mitchell, who had 1 offensive rebound, no defensive rebounds. IT Horton had 9 rebounds in the game. IT Horton was your best rebounder. That shouldn't be the case with Dylan Mitchell and with Caden Shedrick and with, and I know Dylan Dessou was dealing with what he was dealing with. So you're playing a man down and your best player down in that game. I thought they put up a really good fight in the first half. They did what they needed to do. I was happy to see Max Abmas finally kind of get out of his slump. But the reality at the end of the day was, 40 minutes. And when the team starts to do something and it's working, the only way you're going to get the refs to stop doing it is if you do it too. It's the only way. When you play basketball and one team starts to get calls, you do the same thing. And then if the refs don't call it on one end, Rodney Terry has a full gripe to go to them and say, oh, you're calling on that end. You can't say it's not a foul here and it's a foul there. But if you're not doing it, then they can do it all day long because there is no back and forth. Because if they were called 80 free throws in this game, they would have stopped.
But Texas, that's not the way they play. Right, that's not their style.
No, it's not. But you have to. You have to at a certain point of the season.
Well, if you don't adapt and adjust, then that is on the coach, and I think that's why people are upset with Rodney Terry.
I think that's a point of it.
Adjustment is not there.
I think that's a point of it, and I like the reality is, and I've said this before. If I was Rodney Terry, I would have benched Max Abmas a long time ago. I cannot stand. He is such a minus player when he's not hitting shots, and when he's hitting shots, I'd leave him in. But when he misses 2 threes in a row and he shoots it from 7 feet away, I pull him out of the game every time. At 7 feet behind the 3-point line, I pull him out of the game every time. You're not playing defense and you're missing shots. You're giving them long rebounds that are easy 2 points the other way. I can't have this on my court, and you're not going to go and try and get a better shot. So I pull him out.
You don't have anybody else. Problem. That's your problem.
The problem was
no, you take Max Abmas on the floor. You got nothing. That's half your identity, along with Dylan Dessou.
No, exactly, and that's the reality. Is when you lost AJ Johnson, I think, or I can't remember his name now, and Ron Holland. Those 2 guys didn't come. Those were both supposed to be players for you this season. That really hurt your bench. Chris Johnson didn't come along. They tried to bring him in a little bit. He didn't come along. Kendall Weaver's playing well, but he gets in foul trouble early in that game and really can't play for a lot of it because they're just calling everything, and he's already got 4. It just became an issue of not enough guys, and Dylan Dessou went down. That's your anchor on defense.
That's it.
And it was over. And the team didn't have anyone on the bench, the team to pull him out. And so I get, people are upset that, they're not doing that, and you'd like to see them do more things. I think at this point we're looking at next season more and more and saying, okay, well, you need to get some guys that maybe are a little bit tougher on this team, and guys that don't mind getting dirty, because this team right now doesn't have enough of those guys.
I agree. I mean, when I'm with you, when Dylan Dessou went down, I mean, that's your best player on both ends of the floor. So from then on, that causes that cold spell for Texas, because they double Max Abmas and then nobody else is able to step up. Shows a lack of depth for Texas, and shows Texas doesn't have an identity.
No,
I mean, they don't have an identity as a basketball team, right? They don't have a brand of basketball.
No, and that ends up hurting them too, because we can see Houston doesn't get foul calls on them because they're a defensive team. They're a rough team, and that's their identity. Baylor does because they're an offensive team. They're supposed to be scoring points. So when they're not, well, clearly they're being fouled. And Texas just doesn't have any of that. And so they kind of leave him out. The only identity they have is Brock Cunningham's a dirty player. You should foul him out of every game. That's really the only identity that they have, is that he is a dirty player.
When they went back and assessed the flagrant foul, do you believe that it was, after review, a flagrant, or was that a foul based on his reputation?
I think it's based on reputation. And again, I think it's the same as the one at Tech was a flagrant 1. If it's at home, it's a flagrant 2 on the road. I think that's at Texas, that's a regular foul, and at Baylor, because and we saw early in that game, for whatever reason, they thought this was a rivalry that it's not. Because early in the game, they called that technical on Dylan Dessou. That was
I think the belief is that Texas, on their farewell tour, they're going to get the angst and animosity from everybody. The crowds are going to be really emotionally charged because it's Texas, last time playing at some of these places. So I think that may be why, like you said, the refs are treating it like a rivalry when it's not a rivalry. They're treating it like that because it's so emotionally charged.
But that was the thing, is I don't think that game was that emotionally charged for either team going into it. It didn't feel like.
Well, I think they're anticipating it. They're anticipating it.
But you saw that early on, and you just went, "Oh, that's not a good sign." That if they're going to call technicals on those types of things, where it really, like, even when they showed the replay, he didn't necessarily talk to the bench. He said it back. He didn't say it to his team. It looked like he looked straight down. But again, those types of technicals were just like, why are we doing this? Like, I get it's college basketball, but you're on ESPN. Try and make the game a little bit more watchable.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I agree with those points. It's frustrating to watch this team. I think they're still a tournament team. They're still safely into the tournament if they don't just collapse here down the stretch.
Let's put it this way. If Dylan Dessou does not play in the Big 12 tournament or the last game of the season, there's a decent chance they don't make the tournament. There's a decent chance they get Florida Stated out of this thing. There's a decent chance
their best player.
Well, because they say
playing.
Without Dylan Dessou, they're done.
Well, but what if the prediction is that he'll be back for the tournament?
There's
They're
a chance,
resting him until the tournament.
I think if you drop to Oklahoma State at home, you're under 500 then. You don't want to be under 500 in Big 12 play. And then you're also going to go into the Big 12 tournament, losing the first round of the Big 12 tournament, because Big 12 is really good. And without Dylan Dessou, I just don't see his team winning any games. Like, they're just, I don't. Yeah,
there's no way.
Because Max Abmas, all they have to do is double Max Abmas, and the game's over.
As we saw in the last 11 minutes.
Yeah, and so they're going to double Max Abmas. He's going to, be less effective, or pretty much ineffective on both ends of the court at that point. And that's the other problem. Is they double him on one side, and they attacked him nonstop on the other. So even if you put in Kendall Weaver, they basically just switch over and get the ball to whoever's on Max Abmas and attack on him, because he's not going to be able to stay in front of him. So it's disappointing, but yeah, that's, they were safely in the tournament as of last night. That Dylan Dessou injury is worrying, though, because the committee will take it into account and say, well, why are we going to put in Texas when we know that their guy's hurt? And, it depends on what that, after the game, Rodney Terry said that that he'll be okay. And he came back out. So the hope is that it's nothing major, but a knee sprain is normally 2 weeks. It can be 6 weeks,
Depends on the severity of it.
He's also got to think about his NBA career as well, and go in the draft. And does he want to risk injuring it more? I think Dylan Dessou is a tough player that would probably want to grit it out and try and play. But at the same, if he has people above him that are telling him, hey man, they're trying to force you back because they need to make the tournament and they really want to do it. And that may not be best for you. That hasn't been Rodney's MO so far, but there could be pressure, because a lot of people think for some reason an Elite Eight last season was not his doing, and anybody could have done it, which is insane still, I'll say. And that, in his first real full season as a head coach, still being there in a tough conference, that he's somehow the worst coach ever, and they should go try and hire Rick Pitino, who will destroy this program.
Yeah, it's just tough because he's following. Rodney Terry had to follow someone that was considered the home run hire, considered considered a whale that Texas was bringing in, and he wasn't the guy. He was, he's kind of a happy accident, if you will, for Texas fans. And Dak is a happy accident too. Sports fans don't like happy accidents.
No,
they don't. They want the prince that was promised. They want the Arch Mannings of the world. They want the prince that was, which we'll get into, but that's what they want. And Rodney Terry was not that. So that's why it's harder for them to accept.
And I will tell this for Texas fans, again, when you get worried about where the program's at, this is the same in football, same in most college sports. When recruiting gets hurt, that's when we have to worry about it. If Texas keeps their recruits this year, they have a top 10 recruiting class.
And Rodney Terry can recruit.
And so Trey Johnson, they're in some polls 5, they're 6, 7 in different polls of what their recruiting class is for 2024. So if those guys all come to Texas and they do not do what Ron Holland does, and they don't go, which I don't think Trey Johnson is currently considered to be a top 5 pick, which is why Ron Holland went to the G League. And so if those guys all come, then it changes. And now you have to say, okay, well, he's still getting the top recruits. Why would we get rid of him? And so that's really for Texas fans that are worried about it. That would be my main thing to say is go, look, if the recruiting drops off, then I'm with you. Okay, players are not excited about playing for him. Now we have to start worrying about it. But until that, I just think they missed on a lot of transfers this year. They just missed.
And I got bad news for you. Texas is under 500 in conference.
No, they are. That's what I'm saying. But they're supposed to win Oklahoma State to be 500 again. So they're a half game behind right now. They're supposed to beat Oklahoma State on Saturday. That would put them at 500 for the season. Do they beat
Oklahoma State if Dylan Dessou does not play?
That's a hard one. Or sorry, Oklahoma. Sorry, they beat Oklahoma State. Right? Oklahoma is last game of the season. So no, I mean probably not. And that's the issue because you're playing Oklahoma last game of the season. They're a pretty good defensive team. They will be able to shut down Max Asmus. So, then you're going to have to rely on other guys. Now, if Shedrick has some games that he had earlier in the season where he put up 25, you have a shot. But that really is requiring Caden Shedrick to have a huge game that he hasn't had in 2 months.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's frustrating for Texas basketball fans right now, especially with that Dylan Dessou injury. I'm sure we'll find out some more clarification about it today, how severe it was and how serious it was and what the timeline is on his return to the team. But yeah, he left the game and he did not come back, but he did come into the huddle, as my man Patrick mentioned, and there was no brace, there was no crutches or anything like that. Looked like he was moving pretty good. When his parents left the stands to go to the locker room, that's when everybody freaked out because that's usually a bad sign.
Yeah, and
parents having to leave the stands, always a bad sign.
Non-contact injuries are always
terrible too. Yeah, that's just scary. Okay, let's talk about the other big story on the 40 acres that broke last night. And shout out to Anwar Richardson over at Orange Bloods who broke the story. It seems as if Arch Manning will not opt in to the new college football game for 2025. Longhorn fans are upset about this, and college football fans are upset about this. This is my take on it because I understand, Longhorn fans being upset because a lot of people are just wondering, hey, why not opt into it? Now, just so everybody knows, it's a $600 base payment for everybody who opts in and a free video game. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size, but is that they are doing side deals with the biggest names in college football to make sure that they have the most recognizable names in college football. Basically, the best player, the star players on every team. Quinn Ewers has a side deal that they did with him to make sure that they have those guys. So I'm sure that Arch has been approached about a side deal. Right, because all the star players have been approached about a side deal, so he would be getting more than 600. We don't know about exactly what those numbers are; they have not been released or reported on. So here's my take on it. I just think there's a good chance. First of all, there's a good chance that Arch at one point this season will play. We're gonna knock on some wood because we hope he doesn't. But guys, I think in
let's rate that. We hope he does in the fourth quarter when we're up by 40.
Okay, that's good clarification. All right, that's good clarification. I like that. You're right about that. But for the most part, in Yes,
we
right?
hope no starts.
In the most relevant reps,
in the
most relevant reps when the game is still competitive. We're hoping that Quinn Ewers can make it through an entire season because we haven't seen that in a long time. Matter of fact, I got to go back to I believe his sophomore year of high school since he made it through an entire season of football. So there's a good chance that we'll see Arch in some capacity because I believe 18 of the last 25 years Texas has had to use both quarterbacks. Right? Think about that. 18 of the last 25 years. So there's a good chance last year, the year before that, it's going to happen. Aren't you going to see that feel in a competitive, relevant game and it's a competitive game with relevant reps, I should say that. Right? So I think they know that. I think everybody anticipates that. And this is just a negotiation. It is just that simple. This is a holdout. This is his version of a holdout. Manning's the first family of football. There's an argument to be made that he's already one of the most, if not the most recognizable name in college football, and he hadn't really even played any real snaps. His NIL value right now with On3 has him at $2.8 million. That's his On3 NIL value. Now, that doesn't mean he's getting that much in money. They're just saying that's what his brand is worth now in college football. Bronny James, who's at $5 million. Bronny James ain't the best player in college basketball, but most recognizable, probably most profitable, right? Generates the most revenue and the most buzz. Shadir Sanders at $4.7 million. That's his value. Livy Dunn, the gymnast from LSU, she's at $3.5 million. And yeah, she's a phenomenon, right? And Caitlin Clark, of course, right? And arguably the most recognizable name in all of college sports. She's at $3.1 million. That's her On3 NIL valuation. Just to give you a little perspective about how much the value of these guys is worth. But all of these other folks, they've actually played their sport at a high level and actually we've seen them play their sport for the most part. We've only seen, Arch Manning in a few snaps, right? A few snaps out there, here and there. We haven't seen much of them. And I think ultimately this is the Manning family saying we have more to lose than to gain from this relationship. It's a negotiation. I think, first of all, they would like to be the highest paid player with an NIL deal relevant to the video game. I think that's the point. And we don't know exactly what that dollar figure would be, but I think ultimately this is a setup for them to negotiate a deal for next season when he is the projected starter. This year, he's not a projected starter. He will play this year, but I think this is a holdout for next season. Guy, this is a guy that can end up being on the cover of the video game one day. They know that. They want that, by the way. They want a Manning on the front of the game. We don't even know who's going to be on the cover of the game this year, but that's what they anticipate. And the Mannings know this too. So why would you sign a deal prematurely that isn't a blockbuster deal, that doesn't maximize your value when at one point, once you become a projected starter, EA Sports is going to do everything within their power. Yeah, and that includes monetarily, everything within their power to guarantee that they have the biggest celebrity endorsement in college football. And say what you want, the biggest celebrity endorsement in college football would be the Manning.
It would. I will play devil's advocate on this because it is something that I don't think is discussed very much. But there is a statement that Cooper has made and that Arch has made is that until he's the starter, he will not be making any NIL money. He's not taking NIL until he becomes a starter. So
they've said that.
They have said that. Now,
but he has had an NIL deal.
He had the Panini deal, but he donated.
It was a charitable thing.
He donated to charity. So he is not taking.
He could donate this money to charity too.
He could.
He could take the money.
But we will say he said he wasn't going to do that. This falls in line with that.
It does, but that's
just me playing devil's advocate.
They already reneged on that, though. They reneged on that when they did the NIL deal. They did it for charity. So my thing now, you have established a new precedent, which is I do NIL, but I give it to a charity, which is cool. Yeah. So a lot of Longhorn fans are saying now, we'll do the NIL deal and just give it to charity. You ain't got to take it. So this is a negotiation. This is not about principle. This is simply a negotiation for next season. All right. And when he was the projected starter, so that they can say, hey man, let's put him on the video game. Let's put him on in front of the game. That is what they're projecting, I think, down the line. They want a Manning on the game. Everybody wants a Manning on the game. The Mannings want to be on the cover of the game. He'll be the biggest name in college football once he becomes the starter, whether he's good or not. Is Bronny James good at basketball? He's okay, but he's making more money. He's got more value than any other player in college sports right now. Why? Because his name is recognizable and it holds a lot of value. That is the same thing for a Manning, first family of football. That's what this is about. Him getting his maximum value when he's the projected starter. Guys, it's just a holdout.
Yeah,
just that simple.
I will say, if they made it the NCAA basketball game again, would not be as many creative Bronnies as there will be creative arches, where people will be
Very
creating
true.
an arch, and everybody's going to do it. I'll say, as a Texas fan, I don't mind it as much because I understand how many players in that Texas locker room would be starting Arch over Quinn, and I don't like that for the team. Like, hey man, you can't start me in college football now when you're playing it with your friends. You got to play Quinn because I'm not in the game.
Well, listen, we got the quarterback controversy anyway,
yes,
right?
I
mean,
know.
nationally, people are talking about, but you're right, though. No, but this is serious, though. That's why they have more to lose than the gain. That's more of a downside than an upside for him opting into the game this year, because people are going to bench Quinn and they're going to start Arch.
Yeah.
What's Arch's rating compared to Quinn?
Yeah,
we're going to deal with that too, right? We're going to deal with that, whatever that is. The transfer portal in the game, people are going to have him transferring, posted all this stuff on social media. No, there will be a narrative that will start.
That's true. I didn't even think about
this
that.
game. Oh no, they're gonna post all this on social media.
I didn't think about the transfer portal, that he's going to be in every single uniform posted.
Yes. Oh yeah, everybody will have, like, he's coming back to the SEC, baby. He's going to school. It's just gonna cause a nuisance of a narrative. It's not gonna really affect Texas or affect him, but it is a nuisance of a narrative, and sometimes that affects perception, and perception is reality, especially when it comes to the quarterback competition. And maybe he is doing it to just, hey, now let's avoid any type of controversy at all. Even when it comes to the game, I am the backup. There is no competition for me and Quinn. Quinn is the starter, and maybe he just doesn't even want to deal with that, because immediately people are going to bench Quinn. We know it. They're going to bench Quinn, and they're going to start Arch, and they're going to start throwing that out on social media as much as they can. So I just think it's a negotiation, pure and simple. I think they want the celebrity endorsement of the Mannings in the future, and the Mannings know that. And the Mannings are using this as a negotiating ploy to get the maximum value for Arch in 2025 and in 2026 when he's the projected starter. I just think it's just that simple. There's no way they're offering him what his value is. No way. No, his value is like six figures for that game, and I don't think they're offering him six figures.
No, and honestly, this is not the worst thing that could happen to him, because they're getting a ton of free advertising for the game right now. Because he's opting out. They're like, well, cool. We don't have a backup quarterback, and I know people wanted him, but that's fine. We'll not have him and pay him however insane amount of money he wanted, or the family would want, that they're going to want next year, and we'll pay it next year. We'll save it for next year.
You're right,
because he's going to be a starter at a major college, and so we need to get him for next year. I think it is. It's all like, I think that's one of those places the Mannings can have the negotiating, can do all that, and then publicly come out and say, well, we're doing this for morals. When it's which there's part of that, sure, but it's in reality, it's a negotiation too.
They said they're doing it because he wants to focus on football.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that it's
an email. It's an email you got to click.
Exactly.
It's an email you click and you check the box, and then that's all.
If he was on social media a lot, it would make more sense, because he'd be like, I'm going to see all this stuff. It's like, you're not going to see any of this. You're not even on social media.
He's not,
unless he's got burners that we don't know about.
Which he might. I mean, they are the Mannings. They probably have some smart stuff like that. But for me, I think ultimately it just comes down to, when he is the starter, they want to maximize his value. But Patrick's right. They have stated before that they don't want to do NIL deals, but then they did an NIL deal.
They did.
But they did it for charity, which is good. So I don't know. I mean, that's just my opinion on it, but we'll get back to it. We'll take your thoughts on it on the Specs text line, 512-447-3776. You also can hit us up via Twitter. My man at Patrick, it's Patrick Davis in the Twitterverse. I'm at Rod Davis in the Twitterverse. We'll be right back. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll talk about the latest mock drafts, post-combine mock drafts, and where they have the Longhorns. We'll get into that on the other side, right here on the Rodcast on 104.9 The Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to go behind the burnt orange curtain and talk some Texas football. I feel like we just talked some Texas football, discussing Arch Manning's decision to opt out of the latest EA college football game. So we'll get back to that conversation. Of course, it's an interesting one. Everybody loves to talk about Arch Manning. People, Longhorn fans, y'all won't admit it. Y'all won't admit it, but y'all like the drama of a quarterback controversy. Y'all do. I've lived it now in the locker room. All right, with a quarterback controversy, probably the most controversial quarterback competition in the history of Texas between Chris Sims and Major Applewhite. Both of those guys, friends of mine to this day. My man Sims is like one of my BFFs with my brothers, tatted on me, got the wood. So I've been really close to that quarterback controversy, but I was on the inside of it. So I wasn't outside the bubble. I didn't really hear all the noise. That's before social media. I'm an old man. And now I've been on the outside of a couple of these, a couple of them, and obviously none as controversial and none, I think, as popular nationally as the quarterback competition and controversy between Sims and Applewhite. But man, the talk about Arch and Arch and Quinn Ewers now, the Hudson Card thing, I don't know if that was a true competition, even though Sark said it was a competition. The controversy now brewing with Longhorn fans, some of them who are saying that, when Quinn has a bad game, because they think it's inevitable. And I think that's also part of it too. When the game comes out, Quinn has a subpar game and not a great game. Longhorn fans are definitely going to go to the game and put Archie in and bench Quinn Ewers. And even after the combine, some Longhorn fans were upset after watching A.D. Mitchell run the third fastest 40 among wide receivers and X-Men break the combine record. A lot of Longhorn fans were upset that Texas didn't complete more deep passes downfield. That was some of the stuff I saw, the chatter and discourse on social media. Like, well, you know what? Why didn't he complete more deep passes if we got the fastest wide receiving core in the nation? So there's something I think in Longhorn fans that like the drama. I've dated women that kind of like drama. They like to get into it. They want to fight so we can, break up to make up, that kind of thing.
We all know them girls. We all
yes,
know
right. So I think there's some Longhorn fans that kind of like that drama of the quarterback controversy. That's not a controversy here. I mean, Quinn's the starter, but some Longhorn fans, they want to start one. They want to start one talking about Arch and that thing. And so the whole Arch Manning thing, I think it's so these days obtuse and almost unorthodox to see a quarterback sit for multiple years. And not only that, a celebrity quarterback sit for multiple years.
Yeah.
Celebrity quarterbacks for multiple years, and a guy who's rated as one of the top 5 highest rated quarterbacks coming out of high school as a prospect in the history of modern recruiting. So that is tough for people to fathom that he's going to sit for that long, but he has, and that's a credit to Sark. Honestly, that's a credit to Sark. But by the way, Texas is going to need him. They're going to need him because, like I said, 18 of the last 25 years, Texas has had to play 2 quarterbacks, whether for productivity reasons or injury concerns or whatever it may be, right? It's just something that I think is inevitable at Texas. And unfortunately this year, I think Arch is going to have to play in a crucial situation, just like Malik had to play this year in a crucial situation. So, I mean, Longhorn fans kind of like that drama, but I will admit it is one of the interesting stories in college football that one of the most popular players in college football is, he doesn't play. I mean, the rest of these players are athletes who are really, really popular. Bron James, Shedeur Sanders, Livy Dunn, Caitlin Clark. I mean, they all play. Arch Manning doesn't, and he's still a top 5 NIL value overall within college sports. So it does say a lot about what he may be worth in his value. All right, let's talk about the NFL prospects coming out for the Longhorns and their value. So we've got our post-combine mock drafts, and I'm a mock slut, so I love any mock draft. My prediction is we're going to have 3 NFL players taken in the first round, 3 of them. And I think it's going to be Byron Murphy and the 2 receivers, A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. On the latest Lance Zierlein mock draft, he's got Byron Murphy, post-combine, going to the Las Vegas Raiders at number 13. Mm-hmm. That does kind of fit. That's exactly the area where people say he's going to get drafted. By the way, if you want to see what the Texans are drafting, he's got the Texans trading up to go get Quinion Mitchell. It's Leo cornerback, in case people were wondering. Cowboys here. He's got Cowboys taking Amarius Mims, in case you're a Cowboys fan and want to know what Lance Zierlein thinks the Cowboys are going to do. He's got A.D. Mitchell going 28th to the Philadelphia Eagles, which would, I got to tell you, I haven't seen many drafted have the Eagles taken a wide receiver? So that would be interesting. Gets to play with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, that is a weird. I didn't quite get that one because it
I don't
is,
either.
you have two top wide receivers, and I get you can get a wide receiver 3, but in the first round, it seems really weird to draft a wide receiver 3 at that point when, I mean, you're going to need some other pieces on that team. I don't think you were a wide receiver short last season. I think that was the issue of the breakdown at the end of the year was, well, we just need to get one more guy in the slot, and then we get one more guy over here, then
unstoppable.
Jalen Hurts, then he'll really go. I don't know if that was the problem.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That was weird. That's a weird one. He does have Xavier Worthy.
Yes.
Also going in the first round of his mock draft, post-combine mock draft at 32 to the Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen this more and more, Patrick.
We have.
We've seen this more and more. Mel Kiper had it prior
to
the draft.
And Kiper also had Byron Murphy to the Raiders as well at 13. So Kiper agreed on both of those. That was pre-combine, though. Kiper's last draft was pre-combine. So we have not seen if he moves him up or if they keep him right there, or anybody moves around after the combine and they get all those rumors out from it. But yeah, it is. I think everyone now is salivating, if nothing else, at the Xavier Worthy with Patrick Mahomes pairing. That 32nd pick is right in that sweet spot of, if he goes to the second round, someone could easily trade up and try and go get him and get, he'll go early second round. So that. So that first round is where you're able to get it. This is a Kansas City Chiefs team that traded up to get Patrick Mahomes and a guy they really liked when they wanted that. So if they like him and they think this is the guy, the wide receiver we've been looking for to pair with Patrick Mahomes for the next, 3 or 4 year run where we're going to try and get Travis Kelce to come back for a couple more years and really keep this going. And then maybe if Kelce retires, maybe we found our next guy, and then him and Rice can be those 2 wide receivers, and we'll have 2 wide receivers on rookie contracts, and we'll feel really good to try and three-peat next season and go after that. I think it fits really well. I honestly think A.D. Mitchell fits well into that role as well with the Chiefs, that they can look at either one of them, because A.D. Mitchell is a guy who is one of the most clutch wide receivers we know, and a guy who has probably as much playoff experience as any wide receiver would have going into the NFL and college football playoffs between playing with Georgia and playing with Texas. So I think that he's a guy that fits into that as well. But most mock drafts have him going before Xavier Worthy, so he wouldn't be there at 32. But it seems that pick right now is at least the sexiest pick for the Chiefs.
Agree. Yeah, and Chiefs, Andy Reid likes small-ish wide receivers, right? Had Deshaun Jackson in Philadelphia. They traded for Kadarius Toney. They don't mind small-ish, speedy wide receivers. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes did tweet out after Xavier Worthy's 40-yard dash, the first attempt, he tweeted out crazy with 4 Ys. Then after his second attempt where he breaks the record, he had 3 laughing emojis and said, "My bad, 422 ... Remember, Patrick Mahomes actually did suggest to Brett Veach that they draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire from LSU. Now, that ain't necessarily a great pick, but they listen to Patrick Mahomes. If Patrick Mahomes makes a suggestion for them, you're seeing more and more NFL teams do this, right? CJ Stroud suggested, hey, man, y'all should draft Tank Dell. I really like this guy. I worked with him. He's great. He's fantastic. We got natural chemistry. They drafted him. Worked out pretty well until he had the injury. You're seeing more and more teams at least ask their franchise quarterback, get their opinion. I think it's a more of a respect thing, because the Cowboys admitted they do it with Dak.
Yeah.
They just asked Dak, hey, you like any of these receivers in the draft? You like this guy? And they may draft him, they may not. I mean, most of the time they don't, of course. But I do think it's a courtesy to your franchise quarterback. Like, hey, who do you like? And it empowers your franchise quarterback. They start, hey, you know what? I feel a part of this. I am not only the face of the franchise, but I'm involved with personnel. They care about my opinion. And I think ultimately it builds more trust between the quarterback and the franchise. I mean, either way, whether you draft him or not.
If you're running a business and one person takes up 40% of your payroll, you should probably ask them a question or two.
That should get their opinion.
And that's the reality. If this person is 40% of your entire payroll for 50-some people, and you're like, look, we're paying people, under $1 million, and we're going to pay you millions and hundreds of millions, you should probably call them up and go, hey, you know what? I want to make sure you're happy, because if you're not happy, the locker room's not happy. And if you're not happy, you're going to go and call your agent and say, by the way, I'd like an extra $10 million. And so we want to make you want to be here. And why would you not go ask him, and in worst case scenario, he says something where he goes, "Hey, you should draft this guy in the first round." And you're like, "He's a 4th-round talent. Like we'll go pick him in the 3rd, and you'll be thrilled."
And you don't even tell them that. You say, "Oh, thank you, man. We appreciate that. We'll look into it." And then after they leave, you go, "Man, that dude know the hell he's talking about."
Yeah, like Tank Dell's a perfect example where CJ Stroud would have been like, "I really want to play with Tank Dell," and they may have thought, "Well, if he's there, then we'll take him at this round, but we're not taking him in the 2nd. We're not going to take him, like we're not going to jump the gun on him."
The Chiefs did. The Chiefs drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the 1st round. They're like, hey, Patrick Mahomes want him. We gonna get him in the 1st round. All right, that's our guy. And you know what? You could argue it paid off because what happened? He signed a 10-year deal with him. Yeah. Signed the most team-friendly deal of any quarterback in the NFL. He's like, hey, these are my people. And we know now the Chiefs ownership sucks, right? Their own players thinks their ownership sucks. They love the head coach Andy Reid, but they think that Clark Hunt is the worst owner in all of the NFL. And it just shows you that sometimes within an organization, I don't know how it works with them, but you can do it if you just get the right pieces, even if you don't have the best ownership. Cowboys, if you get the right pieces, the right GM, Brett Veach, the right head coach, Andy Reid, right DC, Spagnuolo, and then the right quarterback, you can have a dynasty, even with subpar ownership.
Yes,
it seems the Kansas City Chiefs has. It's amazing.
By the way, do you think that there's going to be enough owners who are like, no, it's a copycat league. I'm just going to be really cheap. It worked for the Chiefs. Like, we got to have all those other pieces. Like, no, it's a cheap thing that's working.
No, it's amazing. It really is. Like I don't know where the money is in Kansas City. They don't spend it on players. They don't spend it on coaches. They just paid Andy Reid. He was like the 7th highest paid coach at one point. I don't know where the money is going, but there's no shrewder. I guess shrewd is the word. When you're cheap and successful, there's not a more shrewd franchise in the NFL than the Kansas City Chiefs.
No.
So I won't call them cheap because cheap. No, they're successful.
I'll tell you what, we'll call them cheap in about 8 years. When we have the post Mahomes hangover and all of that, and
that's true. Then we can do it.
Then we can call them cheap.
Wow. Okay, good stuff there. We'll come back. We'll get into the big fat poll of the day on the other side. My man Patrick always keeps it interesting with the big fat poll of the day. We'll be right back. I am Rod Babers, my man Patrick Davis. This is the Rodcast right here on the Horn.
Back here on the Rodcast on a Tuesday morning. It is another theme music day we're bringing back, Rod. Top of the charts Tuesday coming back for you here on the Rodcast. All of these songs played on Tuesdays were number one hits on this day in history. So top of the charts Tuesday back. So it's a fun one. I always enjoy doing these. So top of the charts.
It's my favorite musically themed day of the week. Back in the day when we did Ball Don't Lie together. I love that. It was fantastic.
So we're bringing it back for the Rodcast. So top of the charts Tuesday here on the Horn. Also, we have Patrick's Big Fat Poll today. Text line's open 512-447-3776. And let's get to the poll of the day. Well, if I turn on
day on the Horn,
we got half the sounder there. We got it.
Hey, it's better than nothing.
Better than nothing. Big Fat Poll today. Today, in honor of the Broncos now telling Russell Wilson that they are going to be releasing him at the start of the new league year, that I want to ask you guys, and this is not a question of what is the worst trade of all time. This is the question of what trade did you hate the most? What trade was the trade that you hated, whether
at
it's
the time or in retrospect?
You could be either. You could say at the time, you could say it retrospect, but it's the trade that you looked at it at the time and you said, I can't believe we're giving up my favorite player, or I can't believe we're trading for Patrick Beverly, or I can't believe we're trading for some guy I can't stand. I can't, or it could be, I can't believe we're giving up all of this for one guy. To remind people of what the Russell Wilson trade was. So this is why we're bringing it up, because this is on there. If you're a Broncos fan, this has to be it, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It is it.
They traded him 2 years ago. This is not, so it was 5 picks, 2 first, 2 seconds, and another pick. They also included 3 players in that trade as well.
Yeah.
And then gave him a 5-year, $242 million extension, and he will be released at the beginning of the league year this year. So that is a horrific trade if you're a Broncos fan, because you're now paying a ton of dead cap money. You were trying to get out of the decisions that were made before Sean Payton was brought in, and everything that they were expecting to have happen, and then they were hoping he could resolve that and get it better. It did not happen, but I want to know you guys, because I feel like it'll be some different answers, because different people have favorite players and different teams that really you hated. But if we go worst of all time, you can just look up list and you can go through and you can find the worst of all time. So I want to know which your one where it's personal to you that you hate. Like, I'll throw in, like, you know what trade I hated, and I hated it at the time, and then in reality, in retrospect, it didn't end up mattering that much. But it was when the Spurs traded Sean Elliott for Dennis Rodman, because I love Sean Elliott, and you trade for Dennis Rodman, and then it was going to be good, but then Rodman didn't get along with the team, and then Sean was gone, and you were like, well, now and then Dennis Rodman was gone a little bit later for nothing, basically traded to the Bulls because him and Greg Popovich did not get along. And he was unhappy in San Antonio, and it ends up working out because Sean Elliott fails a physical because he has a kidney issue, has to get a kidney transplant, and then ends up coming back to the Spurs after that. So it ends up working out. Sean Elliott's still the color announcer for the Spurs TV broadcast this day. So you get those things. They win the championship, the Memorial Day miracle. All those things happen after the trade. But it's like that trade for me is one where I just go, I hated that at the moment, because Sean was a Spur, like that was the guy, and then you traded for another piece, and it wasn't going to work out the way you thought it was. I did have a Dennis Rodman shirt when I was a kid, though, that the hair changed color with temperature.
Oh wow!
Man. I wish I still had that. It was the coolest shirt.
Wow! So you start sweating in that thing, and then it gets
like you go out,
color.
You go hit the playground. You go at the playground, and then then it's like it's yellow. And you go back in the classroom and it's purple.
Oh man, that's great. That is fantastic.
Like a mood ring shirt.
I gotta think about the Big Fat Poll today and one I hated the most, because personally, that's different. That's a different question than what's the worst, because there are a lot of bad ones. My man Shano and the 49ers made a bad one. That Trey Lance trade now looks horrific.
It does.
In retrospect, it looks terrible. Think about where they could be. They could have won a Super Bowl with talent that they traded away to get Trey Lance, essentially. Not talent, but the opportunity to draft those guys with high draft picks. So, man, that's a big difference between the worst and the most hurtful to you personally. All right, so we'll get back to the big fat poll of the day on the other side. We come back. We'll also get into the Dallas Cowboys a little bit. Dak Prescott has responded, or at least he has spoken about the contract extension or lack thereof for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about that. We'll hear from Dak Prescott as well, and we'll get into some Cowboys discussion on the other side. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring my man Patrick Davis. I am Rod Babers right here on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Austin, Texas is a great city, a great town. Aside from the traffic, let's admit the traffic is horrendous. It's terrible. But it's because it's such a great city, people keep moving here, and then the traffic gets even worse. But that's okay because it's worth it. The food is awesome. The people are awesome. The culture is great. Hell, now even the football is really good. But also the iconic landmarks that make this city so unique are also a big part of the draw here in Austin. And many of those iconic landmarks that we love in this city were created and built by the hands and the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. The folks at Ironworkers Local Union 482 don't go to the office, they build it. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity or a refreshing career change, you can become a member of Ironworkers Local Union 482. Right now, they're hiring over 3,000 people for a huge project right here in Central Texas. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. Become a member of Ironworkers Local 482 and take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that help shape the future of our great city. Maximize your potential and accept the challenge of becoming the best version of yourself by applying online at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. Welcome back to the Rodcast featuring my man Patrick Davis. I am lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. So glad it is back. And we have the Idealionaire Patrick Davis to thank for that. My favorite musically themed day of the week. I don't even know if I can remember all of our musically themed days. We had, was it Smooth Soul Monday?
We had Smooth Soul Monday, which may come back. We may go back to that.
We had a top of the charts Tuesday.
Yeah.
What we do on hump days?
We were doing midweek movie music, which is not going to be able to come back.
Oh, midweek movie was
fun.
Good.
That won't be back because we run out of movies. We've done a lot of the movies.
It is true. Good point. Because it was soundtracks, right?
It was soundtracks, and then we've done a lot of them. And then, so the thing is, I can't really test you on them again because then we're doing them, and then you would just be, do you remember when we did this before? Which you probably won't, but at the same point.
Yeah. Well, and also we figured out that soundtracks had a different vibe.
Yes.
Like in the 80s and in the 90s, they would make soundtracks that actually had songs on them that were relevant and related to the movies. They would actually try to use the same terminology, the same symbolism that was in the movie, and they would use, like, literally Coming to America had a song on it called Coming to America.
Yeah.
Can't you see I'm coming to America? Like, they don't do that anymore. Like, they don't have like an actual, like a song that is the title of the actual movie. They used to be so cheesy that they would be like, no, this is the script. They would basically just give the musicians the script and go, all right, now make a song about this scene, make a song about this movie, use this in the title, we'll give you some extra bonuses or something. I don't know what they was doing, but now everything is a little bit more, it's discreet, I should say.
Yeah. And I mean, movies are different now too. They're not, it's not the same experience. People don't go to the movie theaters anymore. And
that
it's
is
a whole
very
different,
true.
It's a different thing now.
What's the last movie you went to the movie to see?
Oh, it's been a long time, and I don't remember.
Really? It's been that long for you?
I mean, it's pre-pandemic. I can tell you that much.
I agree with you.
I haven't not been to back to, and it's not even that I'm afraid of theaters. I don't really want to spread that I'm so worried about being in a public place. I just don't go to many movies.
No, it's just so convenient now. You can buy it. You can buy it at your house and stream it. I think Oppenheimer. I went to the movie to see Oppenheimer.
Okay. That's also,
Oppenheimer was damn good.
I still think the last movie that I sat down to watch was the Weird Al Yankovic movie. That's probably the last movie I sat down to watch. I just don't watch movies.
That was online, right? I still have that in my queue, and I still have not watched it. I will admit to you, I still have not watched. Gotta watch that. But anyway, I'm usually. What was on Thursday? You remember what Thursday?
Thursday's new theme Thursday. She'll be back.
Oh, so it was a random thing.
It's a random theme on Thursdays, and then of course 512 Fridays. Yeah,
which we still have now. Okay, 512 Fridays, also one of my favorite.
So yeah, we'll
music theme days.
We'll debut the new Wednesday theme tomorrow.
Okay. No midweek movie music. All right, I'm looking forward to that. Patrick's the idea, he comes up with all this stuff. Trust me, folks, I don't contribute really much at all to that creative part of the show because my man Patrick has got it locked down. As you can see, you can hit up Patrick via Twitter at It's Patrick Davis in the Twitterverse. I'm at Rod Babers in the Twitterverse. We will get to Horn headlines here, but I want to first talk about the Texas basketball team a little bit, and then we'll get to your Horn headlines because my man Patrick did a great job breaking down the 93-85 loss the Longhorns had on the road to the Baylor Bears. We'll also get into, Arch Manning's decision to opt out of the latest college football game. I understand it's got a lot of people emotional about it. I don't play the game that much, so to me, it's just an interesting story. But some people who really want to play the game, they're a little offended by this. But I think you point out, I believe you can just make them. I don't know I wonder what they're going to name him. What they're going to name him, like Arch Man Thing or something like that? Like, can you even reference it, or is it just this is a random? Is he just random player?
I mean, I'm guessing it'll be QB whatever, and just a number. Like, cause that's how they always used to do it. Would be QB and then the number, and then.
Oh yeah, I was right. Cornerback number 21.
Yeah, so they may not be able to use his number, but they may be able to use the number and just be like, "That's the guy." But he won't be able to be like 6. He won't be able to be the height and the look and everything else. But you can go in and edit him, sure, because that's how they used to do it.
Yeah, like plain white dude. He can't look like.
Oh no, they're gonna make him like black or something to really be like, listen, we don't want no lawsuits.
You gonna make him Asian or something? What are you gonna do?
Make him whatever you can to not get a lawsuit is what they're gonna do.
That's very true. I will get into that. That's an interesting conversation. Let's talk Texas men's basketball, Patrick, because It was a tale of two halves, pretty much, and it was the best of times, but also the worst of times for Texas men's basketball. Baylor, they were up big. I mean, they were up by 14 points at one point in the first half. Texas up 48-40 at halftime. Max Asmus really showed up and showed out. 33 points, season high for him. He had 5 assists, he had 4 steals, carried this team pretty much in the first half, scoring wise. Dylan Dessou was under the weather. Had some, I think, a stomach bug or something as reported before the game. They weren't even sure he was going to be able to play. He did play, but unfortunately, he ended up with a non-contact injury with about 10.5 minutes left in the game. They described it as a left knee sprain. So a left knee sprain for Dylan Dessou. Not sure about his status. As soon as we get something today, we'll update you about a timeline, about the severity of it. But he did show up back in the huddle. He didn't go back in the game, but he did show up back in the huddle with no brace. There were no crutches. Looked like he was moving pretty good. So hopefully that is a more optimistic diagnosis for him. But after he left the game, Patrick, basically Baylor's game plan was to double Max Asmus. They took him out of the game, and Texas had no answer. Essentially scored 1 field goal in the last relevant. I think it was basically 2 field goals in the last 10 minutes of that game after Dylan Dessou goes down. And honestly, that was the issue. Texas didn't have an answer for when Max Asmus wasn't the man, when he wasn't offensively carrying the team and Dylan Dessou went down.
Yeah, and I mean, we also talked, Tyrese Hunter hits those 2 threes to start the game and then doesn't hit another 3 in the game. And, we look, they were 7-13 in the first half from 3. So when you're playing the zone, how you break the zone is you hit threes. The second half, they did switch to man and they weren't hitting threes. And I get people want to say, well, Baylor switched to man and Texas didn't have an answer. Baylor's defense wasn't that great, but they double Max Asmus, and without Dylan Dessou on the court, the game plan for this team, what you do is you throw the ball into Dylan Dessou. If they double in, you throw the ball into Dylan Dessou. They have to either get off of Max or help off of somebody else. That leaves somebody wide open. You can attack the paint. They were doing it really well in the first half. Once you took that away, Shedrick tried to do it. He was not as, he got to the foul line. He hit 5 of 8. He did okay in the game with 14 points, but he was not able to get the ball down as well as they wanted it to. Yeah. I think there's positives of this game. We'll say that they only had 5 turnovers, which is a nice stat to see for Texas, that they didn't turn the ball over well. They did play well in the first half. They shot 43% from the field in the second half as well. The reality of what it comes down to at the end of the game is they weren't able to attack the basket enough, get to the free throw line. They end up shooting 21 free throws. Baylor shoots 42. If someone shoots double your free throws, you're going to lose most of those games. And that's not just on the refs. That's on your players. That's on the coaches to tell the guys to get in there. And it's on your players to go in and do it. And I know people, it's the dual-edged sword of, well, your player, your coach should be able to tell them. I find it hard to believe that Rodney Terry is not in the huddle saying attack the basket. But if you say Tyrese Hunter and Max Asmus both had 1 foul drawn, you cannot play basketball against a bad defensive team and not go in and get fouls. You just can't do that. If you're doing that, it's because they're avoiding contact, taking harder shots, fading away, falling away, creating distance. But when you're 6 foot tall and they have a 7-footer in the paint and you create distance, he can still block your shot.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of things they were running into in that game, was they were just trying to take harder shots than they needed to. They were dribbling the ball too much in the second half, which has been a problem all year long as well. There's just a lot of issues that they've had going through. But the reality is the leadership on the court, Dylan Dessou is your leader on the court this season. They haven't been able to build a second leader on the court. I think they were expecting Brock Cunningham to be it, but for whatever reason, this team hasn't gelled with Brock Cunningham the way the other teams have. I think there may have been some frustration early in the season that Brock was not happy that this team was not necessarily playing the way he wanted. Max Asmus has not been that leader on the court. And I think that's partially because he doesn't necessarily contribute on the defensive end enough that other people are willing to listen to him when he's yelling at you for defense and be that team leader. He also takes, it is one of my biggest pet peeves is every time Max Asmus takes a shot 8 feet behind the free throw line or 3-point line, misses it, and then they go, his range is anywhere. It's like, no, it's not. He is a 7% 3-point shooter from that far away. He's not. He doesn't have that range. Now, he can hit it if he's wide open and he's hit the last 4 shots and he heat checks it. Sure, he can. But more times than not, that turns into 2 points the other way. It's infuriating to watch because it's not that. And I get, we can go to Rodney Terry and say, well, Rodney should pull him back out and Rodney to do all this. We don't have other players. The team is just not constructed. You weren't able to keep the players in the recruiting. They keep them next year. It's a different team. But this year, it's really it's basing on, man, if Dylan DeSue, how bad that injury is. I don't know when Rodney Terry's next media availability is, but that would be when you expect to find anything else out about. I doubt they're going to make a statement about it unless it is season ending. Before that, you expect him to not say anything because they don't want to tell Oklahoma what they're going to be doing, because a huge game against Oklahoma on Saturday now, because if you lose that, you are a full 2 games behind 500 in the Big 12. You're a half game behind right now, but another loss puts you 2 games behind 500 going in. 2 games behind. You don't want to be that, or full game behind, we'll say. But you don't want to be below 500. If you're 500 in the Big 12, how good that conference is, that they're projecting 9 teams in the tournament, then I think you're okay. If you beat Oklahoma, you're pretty good. But if Dylan DeSue doesn't play, that's going to be a really hard challenge.
Yeah, the Dylan DeSue injury, I think right now has got Longhorn fans stressing, as well they should, because he is the identity of the team. There's no question about that. Let me ask you about the free throw disparity. It was 42-21, excuse me there. And, you talked about this earlier. Basically, Scott Drew working the refs early on in the game to get influenced them to call the game a little bit differently. Should Rodney Terry have been trying to work the refs too?
And Rodney does to an extent, but Rodney is not a national championship coach, and Scott Drew is.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a certain amount that Scott Drew is going to be able to go into, and Rodney Terry will get some respect. He got respect in the first half. But yeah, when it came down the second half, they went into the locker room, and I'm sure they sat and looked at the numbers and went, why is Baylor 11 for 28? And I'm sure Scott Drew told him going into the half, we're shooting 40% because they're fouling us on every play, which isn't true, but that's what he will say. And you say, well, how is that happening? And then on the other end, Texas is shooting 56%. Are you just not, like, you're playing clean defense? It's annoying that those things happen, but it is leverage. Scott Drew's really good at those types of things. You talked about earlier, it's identity of the team. Baylor is an offensive team. When they only scored 40 points, which is still a lot of points in the first half, they scored 40 points. That he was able to say, look, there's fouls happening. You need to call the game tighter. The game's getting out of control. You guys are losing control of the game. Things like that, where you can kind of put it on them when they weren't losing control of the game. It wasn't a heated rival. It was a senior night. Baylor was going for their team, but at no point did it feel like anything was ever going to break out. And also at this point, Texas put up 85 points in this game. It's a really good output. I know 93 is terrible, but again, when you say 34 of those points are from the free throw line, 34 of those were from the free throw line. That's an insane number of free throws to have made on you, to be spotted. They made 34. Texas shot 21, and that's not on the refs necessarily as much as it is the guard play and guys not driving the paint. Dylan Mitchell had 1 rebound, 1 offensive rebound. He has 5 points. He only draws 2 fouls. He was able to get to the paint. He needs to go in and finish hard and get those fouls. Those types of plays. Baylor's not that good defensively. You can go get those foul calls. The good news is you're playing an Oklahoma team on Saturday that they're going to want to play more your style. They're going to want to play a little bit tougher and a little more defense, so you probably won't see the game ref the way that it was ref tonight. In Austin, you'll see that it'll be a little bit more. They'll let a little bit more go, which favors Texas a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's frustrating because things started to go wrong for Texas, and then all of a sudden it piled up that now the free throw line was going. Jalen Bridges had a crazy, just was hitting everything. He went 6 to 7 from 3.
Yeah.
Like those types of things. You had enough going against you that Baylor was never really out of it, but they were able to make it seem like they were being beaten down by this Texas team, which wasn't really the case.
Yeah, the other big disparity was the rebounds. Baylor out-rebounded Texas, I believe, with 34-20. Yeah, somewhere along those lines. That was the other disparity. But no, great point there about Texas not being aggressive enough with their guard play.
And we'll also put in one of the reasons they out-rebounded them a lot is there was more defensive rebounds to be had for Baylor because Texas was taking shots and Baylor was shooting free throws. So your rebounding will go. Now they got out-rebounded offensive rebounds. Offensive rebounds, it was 5-9. So they were out-rebounded offensively. That difference is one possession, by the way, because there was one possession where they got 4 shots at it. But but those types of things is like, look, they only shot the ball 19 times in the second half. They missed 5 shots in the second half. Baylor did.
It's crazy.
So you had 5 chances for defensive rebounds in the second half.
Yeah.
I mean, technically you had some on the free throws too, but you missed the first one, then it's not the rebound chance.
It's also the lack of adjustments by the team. When you're realizing how the refs are calling the game, like, then adjust.
Yeah.
Right? Adjust your style of play. The Longhorns didn't do that.
No. And let's say, when you realize this is a problem 4 or 5 weeks ago when Max Asmus starts to struggle, this has not been a new thing that they are not going to the free throw line. This has been a season-long problem that they have not addressed, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, and I think it was just more glaring with that discrepancy.
Because Baylor did it well.
Yes, there you go. Okay, before we get to the Horn headlines, because we'll kind of do this a little backwards. We'll talk about the Arch Manning thing real quick, then get to Horn headlines. Probably going to push Rod's rant to the next segment, and we'll do kind of a NFL news, notes, and nuggets, Dallas Cowboys / Russell Wilson. We'll just throw everything in kind of an NFL gumbo next segment and Rod's rant of the day. So we'll do that. But let's talk about the Arch Manning decision. It was reported by Roy Richardson, and shout out to him. It's good reporting that Arch Manning is going to opt out of the latest college football game, the 2025 video game. And as we know, everybody who opts in will get $600 and a free video game. We also know that the EA Sports folks have cut side deals with the most popular athletes and the most popular players on every team. Quinn Ewers is one of them, so that they can get a little bit more money to make sure that they get the best players in the game. But that's not going to be the case for Arch Manning. Now, keep in mind, Arch Manning's value overall, NIL value, is higher. And then I say NIL valuation, I should say, is higher than anybody on the Texas team. He's right behind Bronny James, Shadur Sanders, Livy Dunn, and Caitlin Clark. He's at $2.8 million of his overall valuation. So in terms of brand value, he's arguably, one of the more valuable entities in all of college football. So to me, I believe this ultimately is, chess and not checkers. I think they understand and project him to be a starting quarterback for Texas in 2025. And when he's a starting quarterback in 2025, like I said, the hype around him and his NIL value and name recognition will probably be able to earn him, an unprecedented amount of NIL money from this video game, and probably he'll end up being the highest, especially after Shadur Sanders leaves. But by the way, another celebrity quarterback, right? Essentially, his dad was a Hall of Fame cornerback. So Shadur Sanders, he also is, kind of someone who has a recognizable name because of a family name. Same thing with the Mannings. They're the first family of football. So I think ultimately when he is projected to be the starter in 2025, they want to make sure he has maximum leverage in negotiation, and he will, because they're going to want to put him on the cover of the video game at one point, not in 2025, but maybe in 2026 when he's already established himself. With that being said, I think ultimately this is just a holdout. So that, and listen, you can go into the game and create your own player and that kind of stuff, but I think this is for EA Sports ultimately, so that they know, no, we're going to need maximum value for Arch Manning whenever he decides to opt into the game. I don't know if that's 6 figures. I have no idea what it is, but he's going to be the most popular player on the game. He's going to be the most recognizable name in college football when he becomes the starting quarterback at Texas. Hell, you can argue right now he's already in the top 3, and I think they want to position themselves negotiation-wise that, hey, man, we got to get maximum value for the most popular player in college football, and he ain't going to be on your game. Do you understand how much credibility your game loses when the most popular player in the sport isn't in your game? I remember playing NBA Jam and it didn't have Michael Jordan. Even though it was a great game, it always bothered everybody that MJ wasn't in the game. We was playing with Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant? No, man, I want to play with MJ. So I think something very similar here. I think they're just making sure that, when he's ready to be the starter, that he has maximum leverage to negotiate an unprecedented deal with EA Sports. There you go.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's that. And we will mention, devil's advocate, that they said they were not taking NIL money. They said they weren't going to do it until he was a starter. This goes with that. They have done the Panini deal. It went to charity. They could have taken this and given it to charity, but they did. They have said that. So this does go in line with that statement that we're not doing anything until we're the starter.
That is true. Yeah. Like I said, you could take, like you said, you could take that money and gave it to charity. You could have taken the NIL money for them. But I think ultimately, I think down the line, but I'm with you. I think it aligns with their values and goals to opt out. Yeah. Right. Because it's like just what you mentioned. They already said they're not going to pursue NIL deals until he's a starter, even though they've done one, but it was for charity. So that's a good nature. That's a good hearted thing. But I think ultimately down the line, this is just my theory. I project that this is about him getting max value for his brand, which is the Manning brand, which is their brand, First Family Football. Because celebrity endorsements mean more than they ever have. Yeah. Everybody, and by the way, Texas got the biggest celebrity endorsement in college football history when the Mannings decided, you know what, Sark, even before, right? Sark has this great year where he competes for a championship and makes it to the Final Four. They gave the Mannings, First Family Football, who probably know more about quarterback and quarterback development than anybody else. They decided, no, Sark's got this thing going in the right direction. We're going to trust the next generation of Manning to Steve Sarkisian. That's a hell of a celebrity endorsement. I think that's ultimately what EA Sports want, right? The celebrity endorsements of the Mannings right now, you don't have it. So it's not going to affect the game this year because everybody's so excited about the game. But I do think in the future, if you don't have the most popular player in your sport in the game, your game does lose some of the it lose some of its mojo. Lose some of the, it loses some credibility for the most part.
Yeah, it loses the part that everyone's looking forward to of the revamped version, which is now we don't have to enter in those players. We get it. We get the guys we want to have.
And isn't it it's more downside than upside for Arch, right? Because
to be in this year? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly, right? Because they're gonna bench. First of all, what's the rating? Is his rating gonna be
that's
close
the
to
biggest part?
What
is his rating? If his rating's like a 72, he's like, come on, man. You put me in the game as 72.
Come out here scrubbing it up.
Come on.
Exactly. Now, if it's too high, then it's too close to Quinn. What if Quinn's like a 91 and he's like an 88? You're like, all right, let's go.
His speed's going to be like a 95. Like, come on now.
Exactly. So I think to avoid that, and also people on social media are going to be losing their mind. He's going to be in the transfer portal. He's going to be transferring to LSU, transferring to Ole Miss and all these other crazy places. And
transferring
also
to Toledo.
Exactly. He's transferred them all over the place. So I think ultimately this is more downside. Listen, nobody wants a quarterback controversy, and there isn't one here. But nationally, they keep talking about him transferring and them being in a quarterback competition when we know there's no competition, but they want to create one nationally. This will just add to it. It'll just add to it nationally if he was actually in the game, the quarterback controversy. Quinn's first bad game, everybody's benching Quinn, putting Arch in there and then posting it on social media, even though he doesn't go on social media. But I think ultimately he's got more to lose than to gain this season. But coming up in 2025, 2026, I think you'll get Arch opting into the game for the reasons that Patrick mentioned, because he's a starter, but also because you can get max value.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's hit the horn headlines before we get to Rod's Rat of the Day on the other side.
It's time for your Horn Headlines, brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Texas basketball drops a tough road game to Baylor, 93-85 last night. Texas led for the first 33 minutes of play, but a late surge from Baylor, led by Jalen Bridges with 32 points, allowed Baylor to take and maintain the lead. Texas plays their final game of the season on Saturday at home against Oklahoma and the Sooners. The Broncos have reportedly informed Russell Wilson that they will release him at the start of the new league year. The Broncos will take on $85 million in dead cap. The Broncos had signed Wilson to a 5-year, $242 million extension after trading him 2 years ago in a deal including 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 3 players. Russell Westbrook underwent surgery for a broken hand on Monday with hopes he would be able to return for a playoff run. Westbrook has been one of the top 6 men in the league for the Clippers, who are currently the 4th seed in the Western Conference with just under 6 weeks to go in the season. And finally, Eagles center Jason Kelce announced his retirement yesterday after a Hall of Fame career that included 7 Pro Bowl selections and being named the first team All-Pro 6 times. The 2011 6th-round selection will play his entire career with the Eagles. Philadelphia will now start to search for their next center and a new locker room leader with the exit of Kelce and presumed retirement of Fletcher Cox, 2 stalwarts of the Eagles for the last decade plus. And that is your Horn Headlines.
Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Come enjoy food, beer, and the best deals of the year on all zero-turn mowers and steel lawn equipment in stock at both locations March 22nd and 23rd. TopGun.net. We'll shoot you straight.
to Raj Wrap the Day, which essentially is going to be an NFL gumbo. We'll start with the Cowboys and make our way to as many of these NFL stories as we can. Russell Wilson expected to be released. Jason Kelce retiring. L'Jarius Sneed and the franchise tag. Mike Evans resigning with the Bucks. The Patriots interested in Tyron Smith. We'll talk about all that and more when we come back. This is the Rodcast. My man Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis right here on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. If time is money, my friends at Appalachia are in the business of saving you both. They're going to save you time, save you money, and find you tremendous value. That's what the leasing part's all about, right? Everything seems overpriced these days, but with leasing, you're only paying for the part of the car you're actually using. So hit my friends up at Appalachia. They have the ability to put you in any make or model vehicle that you want. The professionals over at Appalachia can help you get the price you want, the payment you want on the car that you want, and all it takes from you is one phone call. You're probably sitting in your car right now in traffic, right? Thinking about how run down your car is and how you would love to enjoy that new car smell. Maybe you're thinking about how this car is not big enough, doesn't fit the lifestyle that you have now. Maybe the family's expanded. You need a bigger car when that happens. Trust me, I know all about that. So whatever the reason that you need a new automobile, my friends at Appalachian can help you with that. The car industry can be really tough to navigate. It can take you a lot of time vetting all the dealers and vetting the dealership, price shopping at different dealerships, going down the rabbit hole of research about the automobiles and how safe they are and what's the value of the automobile as it gets older, all those different things that you have to do research on. My friends at Appalachian can take care of it for you. They can take the headaches and stress out of the process for you. And all you got to do is enjoy that new car smell, right? They can even give you an estimate of the value of your trade-in right over the phone. They have what they call their simple interest easy lease. Well, it makes things simple and easy, giving you flexibility and giving you more possibilities and options to help you find the vehicle that fits you best, but more importantly, the vehicle that fits your budget best. So give them a call, 512-346-9977. That's 512-346-9977. Or visit appleleasing.com. That's appleleasing.com. Okay, let's get to the Cowboys news first, and then we'll try to make our way to as many of these NFL topics as we can. Okay, so Dak Prescott was at a charity function earlier this week, and so that means the media got a chance to speak with Dak. And there's been some life changes for Dak that we'll get to and hear his comments about. But also, they want to ask him about his contract status with the Cowboys because there are rumors the Cowboys may allow Dak, if they can't get a deal done, they may allow Dak to play on the last year of his deal, which just doesn't happen for franchise quarterbacks. They don't get to contract years as franchise quarterbacks. If you're in a contract year, that's probably your organization telling you you ain't a franchise quarterback. But that's not the case for Dak. Dak is, of course, the face of that franchise right now. So here, first of all, congratulations are in order for Dak. Because Dak did have his baby girl. Is it last week? I believe it was. He was asked about, at least he spoke about this life-changing event and becoming a father. Here's Dak Prescott.
Say baby MJ.
When did the baby come?
Last Thursday.
Last Thursday.
And how was your life just automatically changed? Do you feel different?
Yeah, I feel different. I guess, especially when you wake up in the morning, you see that baby, you understand the responsibilities and everything that I've always wanted for myself, but to want that for somebody else even more. It's special. And baby's doing great, mama's doing great, everybody's healthy and at home, and we're blessed.
How many diapers have you changed so far?
Just a handful. Changed the first one.
Yeah.
And then about 2 or 3 after that, then, I try to pass that job along.
I feel you, Dak. I've been there. But yeah, so Dak Prescott, by the way, so let me just say this, though, in terms of motivation. Just had a baby girl, right? Just had his first child. And that's always motivating. Right? Everybody who's been there, that's motivating. That'll really inspire you, especially to earn. And then he's going into a contract year. And infamously, notoriously, every professional athlete who is playing on a contract year or in a contract year, they usually have, great seasons, right? That's been the trend usually for a player in a contract year. Dak was asked about his status with the team right now and that contract extension. So we'll get to that audio too. But remember, Jerry Jones, he started this, and maybe he did just because he wants headlines, but he started this discussion when he said there's no need to extend Dak right now. Why would he say that? Because everybody assumed, well, there is a need so you can get salary cap space, because right now you're strapped. Your salary cap strapped because you don't have enough wiggle room within that salary cap. You signed Dak to a long-term deal that'll reduce his cap number, and then you'll get more salary cap space so that you can, obviously acquire more free agents or sign Micah, sign CeeDee Lamb, whatever it may be. But Jerry's implying he doesn't have to do that. Here's Dak Prescott when Dak was asked about, how confident he is that he's going to get a contract extension done at least in this offseason during this latest round of negotiations.
What does all in mean? When Jerry says all in, what does that mean to you as far as next year?
When he says all in on next year?
Yeah. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I've heard that one. I'm excited to see it, honestly. I don't know. I can't say I've had talks with him about what is all in and how you plan on making this move. So, but yeah, let's see. I'm excited for it.
How hopeful are you that you can get a deal done?
Say again?
How hopeful are you that you can get a deal done?
Yeah, I'm definitely confident. Obviously, it helps the team. It's important for the numbers. So I think I've heard Jerry said that. It's kind of out here and told me that part, right? That that is a process. Both sides understand that. Everything's great. I know it happens.
All right, so he's confident. He says, I'm definitely confident it'll happen. He's coming off his best year ever. I mean, he's in MVP conversation last year, second team All-Pro. There's no reason to think that Dak won't continue on this track, especially with Mike McCarthy now calling the plays. Seems like their synergy is working really well. This all-in thing, though, is starting to hump the Cowboys a little bit. Everybody keeps asking about the all-in. Are they all-in? Are you all-in? Jerry Jones keeps having to clarify what his definition of all-in is, which is even more confusing. So here's some more sound of Jerry Jones talking about his definition of all in.
So you could have a free agent rather than have that free agent would cost you as much as 3 other players would cost you. Well, we're going to be all in with the 3 other players.
But
That's all in. That's my point.
What does that
So-
mean?
I don't know what. So he said, I'm all in with the guys I drafted already.
Yeah.
Hey, what's that old Cowboy saying? We like our guys. We like our guys.
But the funny part is, he's like, you can bring in one free agent for the price of 3. And I'm like, if those 3 are Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott, that better be one good free agent.
The Cowboys notoriously, though, that is their last means of acquisition. They prefer the draft.
Yeah.
They're probably the most homegrown team in the NFL in terms of they build through the draft. And then they go to the trade market, which actually undrafted free agency. I'll take that back. They love undrafted free agents too. They're actually one of the better teams that evaluate undrafted free agents. And then they trade, which that's good value when you're trading for a player. And they believe the worst value in acquisition is in the free agent market. And they're actually right about that. But still doesn't mean you shouldn't exhaust any possible means and improve your team by any means necessary, which means free agency is something that you have to explore. Even if you're not getting their best value, it's a way to improve your team. So that's here's another Dallas Cowboys nugget though. Rich Eisen has threw out there a really interesting point that he believes that the Vikings actually might be in the Trey Lance discussion. As a matter of fact, could you pull this up for us, Patrick? I think we have some audio of this. Shout out to Rich Eisen, because Rich Eisen was going through the most
he does his top 5
most intriguing rumors.
Yeah, he does a top 5 list, and it's the top 5 most interesting rumors because he hosted the combine on NFL Network. So he said the top 5 most interesting rumors that he overheard at the combine. Yes,
and one of them was about Trey Lance and the Minnesota Vikings. Here's Rich Eisen.
The coach, Kevin O'Connell, in our booth this weekend, and I asked him, it's funny, he said to me the day before when I saw him, he goes, you get one Kirk Cousins question. Did I tell you this on the air?
Yeah.
Okay. You get one Kirk Cousins question. So my question was, what are you willing to share? Where do things stand right now? And he was very honest. He said he thinks that Cousins is a process guy, and he's going to go through the process of free agency. And so before he said that, I heard this rumor that a possible salve at quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings is a native of the state. And his name is Trey Lance.
Whoa.
Trey Lance is a possible salve for the Vikings. Now, the Cowboys picked up, kept him on as the roster long enough for him to get a bonus. So they're paying the money to keep him. And they, as you know, got him for a 5. I'm just wondering if the Vikings flip him a 3, a Friday night pick. Do they go ahead and do that?
Whoa.
That Trey Lance, as we all know, you also have to pick up a 5th-year option. I'm just saying.
Wow.
That a possibility out there, kids from the state, as we all know, and that might be an answer.
This is why you should always be acquiring quarterbacks, whether drafting them, trading for them, picking them up on the free agent market. I think you should stockpile quarterbacks because somebody's going to want them. If you get good ones, somebody's going to want your QB. Patriots did it for years, right? Traded Jimmy Garoppolo, traded Matt Castle, right? They stockpiled quarterback, drafted like 9 of them while Tom Brady was the starter, was the franchise quarterback, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, still kept drafting quarterbacks. There's so many benefits to it to motivate your other quarterback. You keep the cost down of your current quarterback. I mean, look at Tom Brady, always gave a hometown discount. You look at Aaron Rodgers, motivated by them drafting a quarterback behind him in Jordan Love, so he wins the MVP. Same thing worked with Brady. I just think acquiring quarterbacks is really not a downside to it unless you're doing it irresponsibly, which I say the Cowboys have drafted the fewest amount of quarterbacks since 1999. I think it comes back to haunt them time and time again. It's hurting them now in the Dak Prescott negotiations. But they did acquire a quarterback. They acquired Trey Lance, and look what happens. Somebody wants him immediately. The only problem is the Vikings don't have a 3rd-round pick in 2024. So they could trade for a future 3rd-round pick, But they don't have one this year. They do, however, have 2 4s and 2 4s and 6th-round picks. So 2 4th-round picks and 2 6th-round picks. They could, obviously combine those picks and then make the Cowboys an offer too. But yeah, I mean, that's a possibility.
No, and I'm with it because for the Cowboys, I get you want to keep Cooper Rush because he's a guy that you feel if you get into a pinch in a game and Dak Prescott's out for the rest of the game or whatever it is, Cooper Rush is a guy who can get you through, probably 8 quarters, 9 quarters in a season and not hurt your season. Whereas a Trey Lance, we don't know what he's going to be able to do. And if you draft a rookie, you know what to do. But if you're not going to have Dak Prescott signed to an extension, I think you have to draft a quarterback as well and try and bring you have to have more options on your bench to try and pull somebody in. And there's a name that I want to throw out there that I think is an interesting name because I think it could be a Jerry Jones guy because the story, because everything that's in it, and he's projected now a day 3 pick, which is Jordan Travis.
Oh, interesting.
Because Jordan Travis has fallen down a lot of polls. He's got the injury. He's not going to play right away, which you don't need him to because you have Dak Prescott. So you're not necessarily needing him to play right away, but he's a guy with a great story. He's got a winning, he won at Florida State. The people liked what he was doing there. He's not necessarily a prototypical NFL quarterback, but at the same point, if you take him and he falls mid, round 5, round 6, somewhere in that range, and you're able to go pick him up there, would you prefer to have a Jordan Travis as a project or a Trey Lance as a project? Where Trey Lance, you're hoping that everybody's been wrong, but a lot of people have seen what he can do, and you're hoping he can turn around, or a new project, and who knows? Maybe this guy could be it, and maybe we see some really good things, and it changes what the Cowboys look at, or, again, he looks really good, and you push him on, and you can trade him off for something else.
Yeah, this is the thing. No, that's a great point, and I'm all for the Cowboys drafting quarterbacks. I've said they draft. It's one of their bad habits. It's a bad organizational habit they have of not drafting QBs. You should be drafting QBs every other year just for the hell of it because you never know when you're going to find the next Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know you were going to find Dak Prescott. It was a happy accident. You were trying to, you wanted Connor Cook and Paxton Lynch. Remember those guys they were looking to trade for? You wanted to draft Johnny Manziel, but you drafted him in the 4th round. He was your 3rd string quarterback when he started out. Romo gets hurt. Kellen Moore gets hurt. Dak Prescott's your guy. That's the way it is. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing at quarterback. You got to stockpile them to figure out what you have. So I'm with you. Jordan Travis, I heard a guy like Spencer Rattler, who once was considered to be number 1 overall pick potential, and then has had, kind of a fall from grace. But recently we've seen his skill set resuscitated, rejuvenated there at South Carolina. He had a really good showing at the Senior Bowl. That's a guy, if he falls to the 3rd or 4th round, you may think, you know what? Let's take a flyer on. So I'm with you. Draft a QB. Find a spot to draft a quarterback. I'm with you. Jordan Travis, I like that one. They got a good training staff they trust.
Exactly. But this is the reality is you can't draft a quarterback if you have Trey Lance. Because that means you have to cut Cooper Rush.
Yeah.
And that means your quarterbacks are Dak Prescott, Trey Lance, and a rookie. And that does not seem great going into the season.
Think about this. Trey Lance turns 24 this May. He's younger than Michael Penix and Bo Nix. That's true.
Yeah.
That's how young. So we don't know what the hell Trey Lance is. You could be trading a great player. I mean,
you could be.
The 49ers certainly thought he was.
No, I mean, a lot of people have been in there. There's hope. And the Vikings, if that rumor is true, they still believe there's something worth kicking the tires for. I think you've now had him with the Cowboys, and the reality is you've now seen him for a season. You've now had him on your roster. If you feel that he is a guy that you go, okay, if you feel he can be your backup quarterback, but if he's not better than Cooper Rush, then you have to get rid of him. You have to try and get rid of him. But if you need to keep Cooper Rush and Trey Lance can't play your backup quarterback position, then I say trade Trey Lance, go get a rookie and try again. Because if you can't be the backup quarterback, then you probably, you're never going to be the starter.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think that's a good point. I don't know. They like him enough that they kept him on the roster long enough for him to get the roster bonus, which means they expected him to compete for that 2nd string quarterback. And that's a good point. I mean, the practice squads have been expanded, but that's a really expensive price tag for a guy on the practice squad.
And if you
get something for Trey Lance, if you can flip him, flip him.
And let's not, if you put Trey Lance on the practice squad, someone's picking him up. Because that means that was the problem with Deuce Vaughn all last season. You had to keep him on the roster because if you put him on the practice squad, someone's going to pick him up that isn't in a playoff contender. Because they'll say, there's potential.
I agree.
So you have to keep those guys on the active roster, which meant last season they had Trey Lance and Deuce Vaughn, who were not going to play any snaps on their roster, taking up roster spots from guys that could have been used to try other linebackers and try other pieces on that team. You don't want to have that problem again this season. So you'd like to be able to not have unusable players at quarterback and
honestly,
running back.
with the amount of backup quarterbacks that are playing this year, keeping 3 quarterbacks on your roster, which a lot of teams do, is not absurd at all.
It's not
considering
absurd.
where the NFL is going. The more games they're playing in 17, we're starting to see more backup quarterbacks play. We're starting to see more third-string quarterbacks play. Not absurd to keep 3 quarterbacks.
It's not.
I'm all about stockpiling.
It's more absurd if one of them is never going to see the field because you don't feel he's ready to play.
No, that would only the Cowboys know that.
That's
only the 49ers knew that, and exactly, and that's why they traded him.
Yeah,
the 49ers like, nah, we good. This Mr. Irrelevant guy is better than the guy that we traded away multiple drafts for.
Yeah, we don't want to play Josh Johnson in the playoffs anymore, so we need to put more guys on our team and go get Sam Darnold and other people's insurance policies.
So that's a good, interesting conversation to have. All right, we come back. We'll get into what the facts and what the stats. Got some interesting nuggets and notes to share with you folks. We'll come back right here. This is the Rodcast with my man Patrick Davis. I'm Rod Davis right here on the Horn.
Hey guys, Patrick Davis here, and if you're looking to up your game day experience, then do what I did and join Prize Picks. It's the #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 3 million active members. Basketball season is in full swing. We're about to get to tournament time. We are already getting to the playoff push in pro basketball. There's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments. There's no shortage of games to go check out and watch. You'll be watching college tonight. You'll be watching pro basketball tonight. And on Prize Picks, you can use that basketball knowledge and basketball fun to enjoy the game a little bit more and start picking your players. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. There's no sharks or competitive leagues, so it doesn't matter what your level of knowledge is. You can go in and find the right stats. All you got to do is look at a Spurs game, look if Wemby's on there. Usually you can pick the over on blocks and pick more, and you will have a great chance of getting that one of your players. Right now, Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions and special offers and for the biggest moments in sports. Prize Picks is going to match your first deposit up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code HORN. That's code HORN on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Picks more, pick less. It's that easy.
All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for our What the Stats, What the Facts segment. All right, a couple of NBA related factoids here. Apparently, the NBA scoring is starting to crash. Remember, after it was around, I think, 115 points per 48 minutes. Seems like now, post All-Star break, that's why the unders have been hitting so much in the NBA. I think the unders are hitting post All-Star break at a 70% clip. Now the points per 48 minutes has fallen, Patrick, to 110. Why is NBA scoring crashing? Just because teams are playing a lot more defense toward, the closer we get to the playoffs post All-Star break?
That's some of it. There's some of the hotter teams are not like Indiana was a team that was scoring a ton. They're not playing as well right now. I think there is a little bit more defense being played. I think the officials are probably calling the games a little bit looser, which will allow you to get better defense and guys going out there because they probably wanted to after the All-Star break play a little bit more defense. And the league wanted a little bit more. But I think it's, there's just been some of the top players haven't come out of that All-Star break playing at a very high level, and we've just seen that. Now the Celtics are not having that problem, but some other teams are just not playing as well right now coming out of the break. You expect that to kind of trend upwards and get back to scoring pretty well here mid-March, and then when it comes down to the crack at the end of the season, the crack of trying to get to the playoffs and everyone really getting down to basics and trying to get back to playing their best basketball, you'll see the top teams start putting up a lot of points and the lower teams maybe playing some other guys and the defense, it'll be very one-sided some of these games near the end of the season.
We brought up the Celtics real quick. The Celtics are the first team in NBA history to win 4 games by 40+ points. First team in NBA history to win 3 games by 50+ points. So the Celtics are rolling. One other quick factoid, LeBron James, first player to score 40,000 points in the NBA. He scored his first 10,000 points in the same exact number of games as it took him to go from 30,000 to 40,000. He did 10,000 in 368 games, 10,000 to 20,000 in 358 games, 20,000 to 30,000 in 381 games, and 30,000 to 40,000 in 368 games. This dude is a freak.
Yeah, he's pretty good at basketball.
Right. Yeah, he is, man. Damn, what is he gonna? I mean, when are we gonna see Father Time start wreaking havoc on LeBron James? Ain't happened yet. It happened in his hairline. Father Time is ripping that hairline to shreds, but everything else seems to be in pretty good shape.
I'll tell you what's gonna happen is when he starts trying to get assists throwing to Bronny and he keeps breaking balls, it's gonna be painful.
Hey, man, if he can get Bronny drafted, he might be the most powerful human being in sports. Because I think we all agree Bronny probably should be drafted. Anyway, all right, let's get back to it. We'll come back. We'll talk Texas basketball on the other side. We'll get into all the other top headlines on our Horn headlines, all that and more right here when the Rodcast returns on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my man Patrick plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. One of my favorite, actually, it is my favorite musically themed day of the week. My man Patrick actually is coming up with new musically themed days of the week, so we can expect something a little special later on this week. But love the top of the charts Tuesday. Also, you can reach out to us via Twitter. It's Patrick Davis, my man Patrick in the Twitterverse. I'm at Rod Davis in the Twitterverse. Also, the text line is wide open to you, 512-447-3776. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of discussion on the text line about the big fat poll of the day. Patrick's big fat poll of the day was about trades. There's a lot of talk about Russell Wilson being released or expected to be released by the Denver Broncos. And now in retrospect, I think we all look back at that trade and say that it was one of the worst trades in history. So I'm sure personally for Denver Broncos fans, that trade holds a special place of sadness in their heart. And that's essentially what the big fat poll is about, right,
yes,
Patrick?
It is. What is the worst trade that you are? What is the most hated trade? What trade did you hate the most? So not just the worst trade overall, but the trade you hated the most. We did get some good ones. We got basically somebody said anything Bill O'Brien did, which it falls in that DeAndre Hopkins. But yes, dead on.
That DeAndre Hopkins trade was terrible. Oh, that was one of the worst. Like, that was universally considered a really bad trade, but for Texans fans, it was hurtful. And don't forget, now, I guess in retrospect, this is probably a good thing, but at the time, it was a bad thing. Remember how offended Deshaun Watson was because he didn't know? Remember, they didn't tell Deshaun Watson beforehand. And actually, that was the first time Deshaun Watson started to act out, and that was when he decided that was the beginning of the turmoil and the conflict between he and the organization. Now, we found out later there was a lot of other stuff that Deshaun Watson was doing that, would get him ousted with the Texans. But remember, that was the first issue that he had with management. And remember, that was the start of him deciding he didn't want to play for the Texans anymore because he found out through the crawl on Sports Center that DeAndre Hopkins was traded.
Yeah, that we talked earlier about. You should probably tell your top quarterback that you're making a move or what he thinks about it. Even if you don't listen, you should talk to him. They did not do that. We also got to go. Someone said the Herschel Walker trade at the moment. At the moment, they hated the trade, but then afterwards, they were like, okay, Jimmy did the right thing. But at the moment, they were like, this is the guy. He's the best player on the Cowboys, and you just traded him for nothing.
That's true. That's a good point. That you know what? Yeah. Because at the time, Herschel Walker was he the best running back in the game? He was definitely one of the best running backs, if not the best. You know what? I think Green Bay Packers fans probably felt like that multiple times, right? They probably felt like that when Brett Favre was traded, even though he was older. Remember, Brett Favre had a great year, like a year before he was traded, like 2 years before he was traded. He had like an all-pro year. It's unbelievable. So, and he was so it was a heartfelt connection that he had with Green Bay. And those fans get been there so long, and then they bring in Aaron Rodgers, the young buck, and then I guess some people were like, "Man, I hated that trade at first, but then I loved that trade."
Exactly.
And then the same thing happened with Aaron Rodgers later. A lot of people thought that Jordan Love experience, especially when the way he started the season, that was a bad trade. And then now the way he finished, I think, and now they're looking at Aaron Rodgers with the Jets. They're probably looking at that trade and going, "Woo, Brian Gutekunst, thank you." Because we got out of what could have been a real messy situation, and you guys have basically we've basically been able to reinvent the franchise without having a rebuilding year. I mean, the Green Bay Packers avoid the rebuilding year because Jordan Love just picks up right where Aaron Rodgers left off.
For the second time.
For the second. That organization knows what they're doing when it comes to quarterback. They're in the same division with a team like the Chicago Bears, who are notorious for screwing up quarterbacks and screwing up drafting of quarterbacks. All they got to do is look at the Green Bay Packers as an example because it's right there in the same division.
Yeah. Jimmy the Gringo says Gruden from the Raiders to Tampa Bay. Trading away Gruden. Yeah, that was especially because when he comes back and beats you.
Yeah, and it beats you because you didn't change any of the plays.
Oh.
John Gruden basically realized that they were running the same plays with the same checks and audibles and the same hand signs. He was like, guys, they didn't change the plays. I know all these plays. All right, let's go. I'll tell you exactly what they're going to –
That was the Spurs versus the Cavs in the finals when Mike Brown was the coach for the Cavs. And they're like, he's running Spurs plays. He's running our plays. And so they with the same name. So they would call out the play, and the Spurs were like, we know what they're going to do.
That is unbelievable. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's that does happen. I mean, I don't know how it happens, but it happens. I mean, even Texas, remember, there was talk in that TCU game that Texas played TCU in 2022 that they knew some of Texas signs because Texas hadn't changed. A lot of people think, I think the conspiracy theory is Jared Wiley.
Yeah.
Might have been sharing some stuff, but either way, it's on you.
You could also
should change the damn sounds and change the symbols, at least change the terminology and the language.
Yeah, or you can go the reverse route and that TCU faked giving the signals to Michigan and then built the game plan on the other way and faked them out and beat them in that college football playoff a year ago.
Ooh. Misinformation.
The misinformation.
That was savvy and shrewd, man. TCU, that was a savvy and shrewd coaching staff they had there. All right, so big fat poll of the day. Go check it out. 447-3776. You can have that conversation on the Specs text line. We'll read a lot more of those coming up. We do have your Horn headlines. We will talk some Texas basketball. We will talk about Arch Manning opting out of the EA Sports college football game. A lot of people upset about that, and I understand why. But also for me personally, I think it's a really it's a really interesting story. And I don't think it's just him opting out because he wants to focus on football. I think it's part of it. That could be part of it, but that ain't the only reason that he's opting out, in my opinion. So we'll talk about that coming up. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment, and that's when we'll talk about the post-combine mock drafts. Got several of them out that I want to get into. Lance Zierlein, Pro Football Focus, also an all-combine team that was released by NFL.com, and the Longhorns getting some love there. So we'll dive behind the burnt orange curtain.
Someone interesting on that list. There's someone interesting on that list.
It is. I'm with you. Yeah, I was surprised.
There was someone interesting.
I was surprised about that. Is it 3 Longhorns that are on the all combine list? I believe
3 and then 2 honorable mentions as well.
Yes, there are 3 of them, and I'm with you. One of them was like, "Oh, interesting.
I like it. Okay. I like it."
Yeah. So we'll get to that when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. All right. Before we talk a little Texas basketball, let's hit our Horn headlines real quick, and let's be better educated, informed of the top stories of the day from my man Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Texas basketball drops a tough road game to Baylor 93-85 last night. Texas led for the first 33 minutes of play, but a late surge from Baylor, led by Jalen Bridges with 32 points, allowed Baylor to take and maintain the lead. The bigger story coming from the game was Texas star forward Dylan Dessou exiting the game after a scary knee injury from which he did not return to the game. Early reports on Dessou were that it was a knee sprain, and Dessou was able to rejoin the bench in the final minutes of the game. Texas plays their final game of the season on Saturday against the Oklahoma Sooners. The Broncos have reportedly informed Russell Wilson that they will release him at the start of the new league year. The Broncos will take on $85 million in dead cap. The Broncos have signed Wilson to a 5-year, $242 million extension after trading for him 2 years ago in a deal including 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 3 players, amongst other things. Russell Wilson underwent surgery for a broken hand. Westbrook underwent surgery for a broken hand on Monday with hopes he'll be able to return for a playoff run. Westbrook has been one of the top 6 men in the league for the Clippers, who are currently the 4th seed in the Western Conference with just under 6 weeks to go in the season. And finally, Eagles center Jason Kelce has announced his retirement yesterday after a Hall of Fame career that included 7 Pro Bowl selections and being named to the first team All-Pro 6 times. The 2011 6th-round selection played his entire career with the Eagles. Philadelphia will now start to search for their next center and a new locker room leader with the exit of Kelce and presumed retirement of Fletcher Cox, 2 stalwarts of the Eagles for the last decade plus. And that is your Horn headlines.
Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Come enjoy food, beer, and the best deals of the year on all zero-turn mowers and steel lawn equipment in stock at both locations March 22nd and 23rd. TopGun.net. We'll shoot you straight.
All right, Texas men's basketball. They lose to the Baylor Bears 93-85. They did have at one point a 14-point lead in the first half. They were up 48-40 at halftime, and looks like the Longhorns were going to be able to pull it out if they could hold that lead. Max Asimus was playing really well. Had 17 points at half. Ended up with 33 points, a season high. Offensively, put the team on his back. Had 5 assists, as well. Dylan Dessou was a a storyline early on, even prior to the game. He was having some issues, some type of ailment. Looks like it could have been a stomach bug of some sort. Still ended up playing in the game, even though he's feeling under the weather. But Dylan Dessou actually had a non-contact injury in the second half, with about 10 and a half minutes left in the game. Had to leave the game. It was reported that it was a left knee sprain. We do not know the severity of it. We do not know a timeline. I'm assuming today we'll get some clarity on that. But keep in mind, he did come back into the huddle. He didn't go back into the game, but went back into the huddle. There was no brace. There were no crutches when he went back to the huddle. It looked like he was moving okay. So the hope is that an optimistic diagnosis for Dylan Dessou, because if Dylan Dessou can't play, this Longhorn team has no chance. That's what happened, actually, in that game. As soon as he went out, the Longhorns offense dried up because they started to double Max Asmus, took Max Asmus out of the game, and there was not really an adjustment. There wasn't a counter by Texas. They really didn't have an answer. Texas was out-rebounded by Baylor 34-20, with the biggest stat, I would say, the biggest factor in the game, and Rodney Terry talked about it. Patrick, I'll give you the floor here because you talked about it too, was the free throw disparity between the two teams. They doubled the amount of free throw attempts that Texas had, 42-21. That seemed to be the biggest, or at least one of the biggest factors in the loss for Texas. Rodney Terry talked about it in the post game, and he referenced the free throw discrepancy between the two teams multiple times, 3 times. And his last comment when walking off the dais was, "We've got a good team. We're good. We can play with anybody any given night." 42 free throws is a lot of free throws. And that's how he ended post-game press conference. So, Patrick, your thoughts. I'll give you the floor. What are your thoughts about Texas losing that game to Baylor 93-85?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to tell you, you hit 5 more shots, you hit the same amount of threes, you had 5 turnovers, they had 13, you'd say, oh, well, you clearly won the game. And you go, no. We actually lost by 8 because they shot 42 free throws, because they kept getting the line. And now part of that is Baylor made the right strategy. They were able to get the calls going for them in the second half. And once they got those calls, they attacked hard. Usually the reffing will change a little bit once a team starts to exploit those rules. They did not change the reffing. They allowed them to keep going after it. You saw them start to get guys in foul trouble. Dylan Dessou only played 10 minutes, still had 3 personal fouls in the game. They were going after him. IT Horton fouled out of the game. Brock Cunningham fouls out with the flagrant. That wasn't really a flagrant, but they were calling everything. And Baylor was selling really well. Like, it's not flopping because there's contact, but they were hitting the ground hard on those to make it sound like it's a worse injury. If you hit the ground hard, then they go, well, that was hard. And you go, no, the hit on the ground was violent. The player didn't hit him on the ground. The player hit him in the air, and the guy fell down instead of putting his feet underneath him. I know how to do it. And Shedrick had 4 fouls. Kendall Weaver had 4 fouls. Kendall Weaver only plays 13 minutes. I think that was a big piece, because if you're able to have him on the court, able to play defense some more for the guards, I think that would have helped you out more. But he was, they're driving right at him. He's going to go attack and try and get blocks. He was not able to do those. There were some fouls. There were some fouls that were not fouls called. There was a lot that, you were 50-50 and you could or you could not. But in reality, it ends up that Texas does not attack the paint enough. Texas does not attack and go in and get that. Make the officials call it, down the line and call it both ways. Make the officials realize that there's 80 free throws in a game, and that's not a good way to call a game. But they never did that. They did not attack. Max Asmus drew 1 foul. Tyrese Hunter drew 1 foul. That's unacceptable. Like, you have to go in the paint and draw fouls. When they're calling the game that tight, you have to go after it. I think IT Horton gets it more. He drew 5 fouls. He only shot 4 free throws, but it's, he at least gets it more. He didn't take a lot of shots in the game. Dylan Dessou's usually better at it. He got in foul trouble. He was sick, did not seem to be himself in that game. If you're a fan of plus minus, which are kind of skewed stats sometimes, Dylan Dessou had plus 19, clearly leading the way, but that was also because he was missing in the part of the game when Baylor went on their huge run. So he was not there for that. Interesting one, though, Kendall Weaver was actually a +1 in the game. Everybody else was in the negative, but +1 for Kendall Weaver, showing you again how important he is to have on the court. But those issues, you can't. 42 free throws are going to skew any game. When they shoot double the amount of free throws you take, they hit 13 more free throws than you took. So that's 13 points that you could not even get if you even if you hit 100% of your free throws, you're shooting at 13% disadvantage. And some of those are going to be there. The free throw discrepancy is somewhat, when it's this off, It's disappointing because we didn't really get to see a great second half of basketball. They only took 19 shots, Baylor did in the second half, because of the free throws. You know, they shot 27 free throws, 19 field goals.
Wow.
That's those numbers right there. Just it's crazy because they understood. They understood what the assignment was. Scott Drew was able to work the officials and get it to a way where they were able to start calling the game tighter, that Texas was playing rough. Texas does, if anything, has a reputation that Brock Cunningham is going to play rough, that he's going to get inside, and those are fouls, which is, you know, it's somewhat of a BS reputation, but I get why he has it. Caden Shedrick, Kendall Weaver, Dylan DeSuda, even to an extent, Dylan Mitchell, those guys are going up for shot blocks because they're trying to play defense. And if you're not allowed to do that, if any contact, even if it's initiated by the other guys, is going to be a foul, it's just really hard to play defense. And that's what they went into in that second half. It wasn't like they were playing great, and then you throw in the other side of it, offensively, this is a Texas team that when they don't play, when the other team scores and they're coming out of an out of bounds inbound, they're not a great offense. What they were able to do in the first half against Baylor was missing shots. They were coming back. You get mismatches. You get them offset where Dylan DeSue is wide open underneath the basket, or Max Asmus has a guard on him that can't guard him. They're not double teaming, and they were dropping back into zones. And there was even plays in the first half where half the guys thought it was man and half the guys thought it was zone, and someone's getting wide open. And they were able to break that down really easily. In the second half, Baylor was basically slowing the game down to a crawl by getting to the free throw line, which meant then Texas was taking the ball back up, and they would double team Max Asmus, and he's not been great at moving without the basketball. Like, Max Asmus just needs to watch a lot of NBA film and realize what these NBA players that are like Steph Curry. What is Steph Curry? One of the best things he does. He moves without the basketball. They set screens. They do. Yeah. And Max Asmus goes off in a corner and goes, well, I'll draw the double team. And you go, that's okay, but if Dylan DeSue's not on the court, you have to score. Because Tyrese Hunter is not going to be that guy. Unfortunately, Dylan Mitchell is not going to be that guy. So once they understand that, they're playing off them, they're going to drive the paint and basically make them take a shot where they're not going to draw contact because the Baylor players are playing off them a little bit. And it just came down to it where enough Texas players weren't taking the shots when they got them. They were missing really easy ones around the rim. Brock Cunningham also hurt his shooting hand in that second half on just kind of a freak play where he stuck his hand in and caught a player. And that meant he missed 2 or 3 bunnies at the end of that game in the second half, where he couldn't grip a ball right with his right hand. He's still in the game because they don't have enough depth on this team right now. And, you know, as much as people want to put on that Texas, you know, didn't work up their younger players enough and didn't build up a rotation, this team was supposed to be competing to get back to an Elite Eight, where you're not going to be able to necessarily work a rotation and get your younger players up to speed. And if Rodney Terry would have done that, everyone would have been mad at him for not playing his starters and losing games because he was trying to get young guys. It's unfortunately for Texas, this is the team that, because of some guys not coming in, because of some missed shots on the transfers, that IT Horton hasn't been the shooter that you hoped he was going to be, that Max Asmus has not been the complete player and had been able to adapt to Big 12 basketball coming from Oral Roberts, the player you thought he could be. Dylan Mitchell has fallen off at the end of the season. There's just too many things right now where this Texas team is having too many issues that they're trying to overcome. And unfortunately, you go play Oklahoma on Saturday. Dylan DeSue, you're really hoping to come back, and this is really a really minor injury, and it was more that he had a stomach bug, and it felt worse, but he'll wake up today. Luckily, it was a Monday game too, so you get a little bit more time before Saturday for him to work it out. But if he's out, this could be a difficult run for Texas, as, if you lose this, he's not back for the Big 12 tournament. You're now playing in that tournament. If you drop that first game without him there's a chance that the bracketologist and everybody in NCAA says, well, they don't have Dylan DeSue. They're not a competitive team, and we're not going to put them in the tournament if they're not a competitive team.
Well, hard to argue with them not being a competitive team without Dylan DeSue, because I agree with that. I'm a Texas fan. If they don't have Dylan DeSue, they don't have a shot.
No,
and nothing against the rest of the squad, but he's
most
the
teams.
Team.
Most
they
teams,
don't have an identity.
Yeah, most teams when you take their best player off the court are not going to be great, especially in the Big 12 where it's a tough conference. And I get, and there's some people online that are some people on the text line who have, questioned Dylan DeSue playing in the NBA. He's got a 3-point shot now. He can play defense. He's got a 3-point shot. He's 6'9". He'll be in the NBA.
He can score at multiple levels now too.
Yeah, and that's the reality is I'm not saying he's going to be an everyday, he's not a starter in the NBA. I'm not giving you that, but he'll play in the NBA because he's 6'9", a 6'9" stretch defender who can run. Like there's definitely teams that'll be like, oh yeah, we can get this guy and we can get him to that next level. I mean, you look at Jericho Sims. Jericho Sims is playing good minutes for the Knicks when he's healthy because he's somebody who can come in and rebound and play tough in the paint. There's guys like that. If you have the size, the issue is Tyrese Hunter and Max Asmus are both 6 foot. If they're 5'11", 6 foot, those guys are not going to the NBA because they're too short. Dylan DeSue's like 6'9". He'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And Dylan DeSue, I mean, he had a chance this year. He still could be first team all conference.
Yeah,
in the most competitive basketball conference in the country. So yeah, Dylan DeSue is having a hell of a year. I'm not gonna say is because he ain't out. But we will wait, and we're waiting with bated breath to find out exactly what the diagnosis is with Dylan DeSue and how long he's going to be out. Because I'm with you. If he misses that Oklahoma game, they're trying to keep him out to get him fresh and get him healthy for the Big 12 tournament or even for the big tournament. Maybe their tournament hopes potentially could be in jeopardy because they need that guy, no doubt. All right, that was a great breakdown from my man Patrick about Texas basketball. We're going to push our Arch Manning conversation to behind the burnt orange curtain. So we'll do behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll do post-combine mock drafts for the Longhorns. We'll do all combine team. We'll do all of that, and we go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment. So let's save that for the next segment. Hit us up on the text line, 512-447-3776. I'm at Rod Davis in the Twitterverse. My man Patrick at It's Patrick Davis in the Twitterverse. We'll come back. The Rodcast right here on the Horn featuring Patrick Davis. I'm your co-host, lifetime Longhorn, Rod Davis. All right, let's get to some Texas football news, notes, and nuggets. The first story, of course, is probably the biggest story for Longhorn fans. Arch Manning has decided to opt out of the EA Sports college football video game for which is coming out, I believe, in the summertime is when it was projected to drop. They don't have a date yet on actually when it's dropping, but I think it's expected to drop this summer. And they have 10,000 of the what they think are, I think it's 11,000 is the estimate of players all around that their goal was to opt in to the EA Sports video game. They have 10,000 of that 11,000 number, which is pretty damn good. But one of the players who decided to opt out, and probably the most recognizable name that's opting out of the EA Sports video game, is going to be Arch Manning. Now, there's a lot of discussion about why Arch Manning decided to opt out. I believe the reason that was given, shout out to Anwar Richardson, the reason that was given in the report was that he wants to focus on football. It's not a real commitment. I mean, I believe they send you an email and you have to opt in via the email. You just check a box, click a box, I should say, and then you're opted in. Now, people who opt in, or players who opt in, only get $600. All right, for their name, image, and likeness. That is what they're compensated, and they get a free video game. We do know that EA Sports has cut side deals with the most recognizable and the best players on each team. So even Quinn Ewers has one, so they can make sure they do get the name recognition, and the game does have a lot of credibility because you have the best stars from each team on the game, because that's what people want to play with. So Archer Manning is opting out. I just think, honestly, and I know that the family has decided they don't want to do a lot of NIL deals. I mean, Patrick brought it up earlier. They don't want to do deals until he's a starter, even though they've done a deal with the trading card company, but that was for charity. And this also could have, likewise, gone to charity. It did not go to charity, but it could have gone to charity. But I'll just throw this out there. I think ultimately I think that's part of it. Football's part of it. I do think it aligns with their values and goals and what they want. But the truth is, ultimately, I think this is a holdout. All right, this is a negotiation. And I don't think it's a holdout for this year. I do think this season the Mannings are going to opt out of the game, or Arch Manning will opt out of the game. I don't think he's going to change his mind unless they come at him with a bag of cash. And I don't think that's going to happen either. I think this is a long play for the Manning family. I think ultimately they want him when he's projected to be the starter, which will be in 2025. When he's projected to be the starter, they'll be in a position then where you could have maximum leverage in that negotiation, and there could be an unprecedented amount of compensation for Arch Manning, considering when he's projected to start in 2025, he is arguably going to be the most famous and most recognizable name in all of college football. And you go, Robbie, that's crazy. He hadn't even really played any. First of all, he's part of the first family of football. All right, he's a nepo baby. And if you go look at all the top earning or the highest valuations for NIL revenue for different college athletes, the two top ones are nepo babies. names you already recognize because they're names and brands that have already been established. Bronny James is worth valuation of $5 million. Shadur Sanders, he's already at a valuation of $4.7 million. Then there's Livy Dunn. Then there's Caitlin Clark. And then Archie Manning. He has the fifth highest overall valuation for any college athlete based on his NIL brand. And that's happening without him playing at all, really. I mean, I know he played a little bit in the Tech game and got in a few snaps and a few series, but Bronny James, he plays. Shadur Sanders, he plays. Livy Dunn, she competes. Caitlin Clark, she plays. When he plays, he's going to skyrocket to the top of that list.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately he wants max value, or at least the Mannings want max value for that brand and for that really for the name. And when he's a projected starter, there is a case to be made that he is going to be the most recognizable name in college football. And with that being said, I think they want to be compensated as such. So I think that's what it's about. A long play. I think it is football. I do think there's also, they don't want to take advantage of the NIL resources until he's the starter. They want to focus on football and being a student athlete. I get all of that, and I do think that is true. But also, I think this is a holdout. and it's a long play, and the holdout is about next season, basically telling EA Sports, y'all better come correct now. Y'all best come correct. We could have signed this little deal. We could have signed. I'm sure they came in him with a side deal too, and they were like, "Nah, we're good." And I think when they come to him with an offer next time, they want to make sure it's legit when he is the actual starter, where his revenue, his NIL valuation and the revenue that he could produce will be, honestly, it might be unprecedented. I mean, he might be up there. He might surpass Bronny and Shedeur Sanders in terms, because he's at the University of Texas, where you do have a lot of sugar daddies. You do have a very affluent donor base. BMDs, shout out to the big money donors and boosters. And you have right now the brand of Texas sports to also align with the brand of the Mannings, and you want that, that celebrity endorsement from the Mannings. And right now you don't have that with the EA Sports college football video game. It's like when they didn't have Michael Jordan on NBA Jam. It used to always annoy people to have to play with Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. Hey man, you want the best players on your video game. I think that's what they're presenting, that conundrum to EA Sports in 2025.
Yeah, and I think the reality too is, if any team, you wanted Arch Manning in there because people are going to be in the transfer portal and everyone's going to go, oh, I got to go get him. You're a bench player. I've read the articles. I know you hate it there. You're miserable. We know that.
Right.
And so I think that he would have been big there. But yeah, it's, you also look at, if Texas does well again this year, they get to the playoffs again, they go with what they're planning to do, with what Sark is, preaching that they're going to be doing this year, then you can't not have the starting quarterback of Texas going into next season.
Come on.
And so I think you could also see they could be negotiating something bigger of, well, all right, now you put in a campaign mode where you're going to be Archie Manning, and then you'll be Peyton Manning, then you'll be Eli Manning, and then you'll be Arch Manning, and we'll have you go through all the Mannings. And
brilliant.
So that could be something that's a year or two down the road where they're saying, well, no, we're negotiating, because then once you get the Manning, you can get all the Mannings and have everything, and it could be this whole brand, and that will cost even more money.
That's big. I didn't think about that. Now you're thinking on a grander scale. Yeah, man. Actually, you may make a point there, because I don't know about how the legacy stuff works in college football. I hadn't played it that long, but I know you can go back in the day.
I know that there was one that had, like, you could go back to former Heisman winners and do their run for Heisman. Yeah. So I know they put those things in. Madden would have different scenarios. Different games do different things to add in different pieces. They don't need it this season because it's the first year back and everyone's going to buy the game just because. But then when you get into next season, when people are like, well, I have the last year's game, I don't need to get the new one.
I don't need to get new it. So it's the same game.
You got to make something more valuable in the next one. And so those types of things, when they start doing that, and I'm not saying that'll happen, that's just pure speculation, but
that's a good idea.
But it's stuff like that, which where when you say when he's a starter, and especially if he starts and then you're talking about his second year as a starter, you put him in and then you add in all this stuff, and he's a Heisman contender and all of that.
And he's going to be, they're going to project him to be on the cover of the game.
Yeah, well,
not his first year, but I'm talking about that second year as a starter. They're going to project him to be on the cover of the game because he's going to be the most recognizable, famous name in college football.
Well, and that was, previously you couldn't put a college player on the game. You had to put a graduated player or a player that was going to the draft. That was the only players you could put on. So it wouldn't be until a guy. So basically, whoever won the Heisman or was a player of the year and then went to the NFL, that guy would be on the cover. So you go forward. Now you can put anybody you want on there. So now you could put, we'll see.
Who opts in?
Yeah, well,
they got to opt in.
Well, you got to pay him. But that's like Quinn Ewers could be on one of the covers. You could have Dylan Gabriel on one of the covers, who's coming up who's going to be a front runner in doing things this year.
That first cover's got to be iconic. I think they should go with Saban. Just put Saban on the front. I do. Everybody be happy with that. You ain't got to worry about upsetting a fan base.
Well, now too, they do these video games. They do multiple covers.
That's true too. You could do regionals.
So, I know when they regionals, I imagine they still do the Legacy Saban edition, which is like the $200 edition where you get all this bonus stuff on there. That'd be the Saban. And then the regular edition will be a player, but then Saban you put on the big one.
Yeah, you got a money-making mind there, Patrick. I see that. That's why he's the idillionaire, man. That's why we call him the idillionaire over there. All right, how about this? Let's get into some of these. Let's go to the all-combine team because Patrick and I both were a little surprised by the all-combine team. So they basically, NFL.com, defense and offense, they came up with their all-combine team, and there are multiple Longhorns that got some love. Of course, Xavier Worthy got love. He made the all-combine team. No surprise there at all offensively.
A.D. Mitchell was an honorable mention.
A.D. Mitchell was an honorable mention. Surprised he didn't make it, but I guess you can't put two Longhorns on there. That's way too much love. But another Longhorn did make it at the running back position. Keelan Robinson made it at the running back position. How about that? Getting some love. Remember, Keelan Robinson actually did have a good workout. He had the fourth best 40 among the running backs. He was second in his 10-yard split. He had a 10-5 broad jump. He is the best kickoff returner in this draft class, and I say this several times. If they change that kickoff rule from the NFL kickoff return rule to the XFL kickoff, a guy like Keelan Robinson could really see his stock soar. May not be a drafted guy, but could be a priority free agent for a team. So I think both you and I were. I don't use this term a lot as a black man. I was flabbergasted to see him on there because I thought there were some good running backs, but it just shows you Texas still looks like Jonathan Brooks is going to be the first running back taken. At least that's even coming off the injury. Still, a lot of the projections have him as the top running back on the board. And now you got a Keelan Robinson who may sneak into the back of the draft if possible, but I think most likely it's going to be a priority undrafted free agent.
But I did like the analysis they put on that, which we've been talking about him as a special teams guy, as someone who could be valued in your game there. The analysis on the NFL.com report was basically he could be a premier pass catching running back of a running back that, doesn't necessarily, he's not going to be your every down back. But if you want to put guys in passing situations and have him pop out like he did for Texas, that he's somebody in pass catching situations where he's not blocking or whatever else, you can send him into those games. And he has the speed that if you get him that ball out in open space, he can get you 15, 20 pretty quick. Yeah. And that's, I like that analysis of something that I was thinking more of him, not as a, sticking, but when we talk about Deuce Vaughn going to the Cowboys last year, Deuce Vaughn is a guy that you're not going, well, he's going to be an every down back in the backfield, but he was still drafted to the Cowboys as somebody who could be used in special teams and used as someone to get the ball passed out in the backfield and get him in space. I think Keelan Robinson fits into that mold better than some of the other backs who you think, well, maybe he'll be a 2-year back for us, and maybe he'll be able to get in and get us 3 yards a carry, and he'll be like a backup back for us, but not even really a change of pace. I think Keelan Robinson is somebody who can fit a specific role that certain coaches would be very excited to have.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And like I said, I was a little shocked to see it in there, but for Keelan Robinson, obviously made a good impression on a lot of these scouts there at the NFL Combine. Also, Byron Murphy made it on the defensive side. You brought up the honorable mentions, A.D. Mitchell being one of them. J.T. Sanders also got honorable mention on this all-combine team, and so did Christian Jones.
Yes.
Shout out to my man Christian Jones getting a lot of love, man. Looks like Christian Jones will be drafted, and I think his draft stock actually continues to increase. So shout out to Christian Jones. All right, let's get into some of the post-combine mocks. Because I love, first of all, I'm a mock slut, so I'll look at anybody's mock draft. But I was looking at my man Chip Brown's piece he had at Horns 24/7, said he talked to an NFL scout. And he said one scout from the NFC told him that Texas would likely have 3 first-round picks, something that we talked about yesterday. And I said after watching the Combine, I think they'll have 3. I think both receivers, A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, and then, of course, Byron Murphy, who's been mocked as a first-rounder since right after the offseason started. I mean, I haven't seen a mock without Byron Murphy in the first round. And that was before the Combine and right when people started watching film, they had him as a first rounder. But Xavier Worthy, I think, is how increased his draft stock to become a first rounder, and A.D. Mitchell cemented his draft stock as a first round pick. So I think you'll get 3 for the first time since 1980, the year I was born. Lance Zierlein, really respected draft analyst, does his mock drafts over at NFL.com. Who actually works there in H-Town. I've met Lance a couple times. A really good dude, but also works real hard and has great draft analysis. He actually has 3 Longhorns being drafted in his latest mock draft. He's got Byron Murphy going 13th overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. That's actually a 3rd or 4th draft analyst I've seen with Byron Murphy mock to the Raiders. So a lot of people like that pick.
I'll throw you another one in. We just got another one. Jordan Reed put out his mock draft this morning.
Oh, yeah, I like him.
He has number 13, Byron Murphy, to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So those rumors, apparently, the Raiders must be high on Byron Murphy.
Yeah, maybe that's interesting. Maybe it's Antonio Pierce, but they like them some Byron Murphy. I've seen that several times. He also has here, in case you're a Texans fan or a Cowboys fan, I'll give you that too. You got the Texans actually trading up. We talked about this yesterday, Patrick. You got the Texans trading up. Nick Caserio being aggressive, trading up for a corner. Quinyon Mitchell, who showed out at the combine. If you're a Cowboys fan, he's got your Cowboys taking Omarius Mims, the Georgia offensive tackle, at 24. But he's also got A.D. Mitchell going to the Eagles. Don't really understand that one. That one that's a bit perplexing because the Eagles have 2,000-yard receivers, relatively young guys.
And I believe that's a trade of the Eagles trading up to that spot.
You're right. He said, yeah, with the Bills.
So I don't know why they would trade up for A.D. Mitchell. That doesn't make sense. Or maybe it was a trade down. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, because they had the 22nd, so maybe they traded down and they just put him in there. I don't know.
I know Lance Zierlein is usually really good. I usually like a lot of stuff. That one, outside the box.
Again, I can tell you in the mock draft that came out this morning for me, he has 28 A.D. Mitchell as well, but to the Buffalo Bills.
That
makes a little bit more sense because now you say Gabe Davis is going into contract. We know the Stephon Diggs question. They could be wanting a young wide receiver where they have some guys, but they could be wanting somebody when they're not going to pay Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs to be there.
This also seems to be a popular mocked pick for a Longhorn. Xavier Worthy's to Kansas City.
Yep.
More and more that is becoming very, very trendy. I did see Patrick Mahomes tweet out after the 40-yard dash attempts by Xavier Worthy. I think he tweeted out once, crazy with a lot of Y's. And then I think the other time was several emojis when he broke the record, several laughing out loud emojis. And my bad, because I think he essentially said the 4.25 was crazy. No, 4.21 is even crazier. So Patrick Mahomes did comment, and Patrick Mahomes has suggested that the Chiefs draft the guy before. He suggests they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They drafted him. And we've seen other teams, right? The Cowboys have done this. They've asked their starting quarterbacks, hey, what do you think about this player in the draft, that player in the draft? C.J. Stroud suggested the Texans draft Tank Dell. They did. So maybe that could happen for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you're Xavier Worthy, you should be praying that is the case because your career would start off with a bang, to say the least.
Yes.
All right.
And no shocker, Jordan Reed,
also
number 32 to Xavier Worthy. He has that one as well. He does have a second round in his mock draft as well. So I'll give you the Longhorns in the second round. Number 55, J.T. Sanders to Miami.
Oh, that's unfair.
If he falls all the way to 55, that's a steal. If he falls all the way to that.
Crazy.
58, Jonathan Brooks to Green Bay.
That's not surprising because they're talking about parting ways with one or even both of their running backs, A.J. Dillon and Aaron. Yeah, so that makes sense.
So, especially if you get rid of one this season and in the next season.
Yep.
And then Tavondre Sweat to Buffalo at number 60. So he has 3 in the second round as well. 3 in the first, 3 in the second for Jordan Reed in his mock draft.
McDermott, defensive-minded coach. He wants to be able to stop the run, get the best run-stuffing D tackle in the draft. That's actually not he's going to fall that far. I figure somebody's going to scoop up T-Sweat, but he did come in at 366.
And that still is, in that mock draft, 6 Longhorns in the top 60 picks.
And they got 3 in the first round, too.
3 in the first round, 3 in the second, 3 in the top 60. That's not bad.
That's not bad.
That's a lot better than what Texas have been in some previous years.
Amen, brother. All right, there you go. A little behind the burnt orange curtain. When we come back, we'll keep this party going. We'll get into a little bit of an off the record on the side. I got an interesting story I want to share here and off the record. We got that coming up right here on the Rodcast on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Other than the traffic, Austin is a fantastic city. It's a great city, great food, great culture, great people, and that's why people keep moving to Austin, right? Because Austin has so many things to offer, including the beautiful, iconic landmarks around town that really make this city so unique. And one of the things that I love about them is that they were actually crafted, a lot of these iconic landmarks around town, by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge, DKR Stadium, and the folks at Ironworkers Local Union 482 right now are hiring over 3,000 people because they got another big project happening right here in Central Texas, all about building up this community. And right now, it's a perfect opportunity for you to join this prestigious organization. Right now, they're hiring over 3,000 people. As I said, they're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So become a member of Ironworkers Local 482 and take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that help shape the future of our great city. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity or a refreshing career change, become a member of Ironworkers Local Union 482. You can maximize your potential and accept the challenge of becoming the best version of yourself by applying online at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast with Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Let's talk about the record. sure you guys are familiar with on the last episode. They're sitting in the booth of the restaurant. I think it was Hoston's is the name of the restaurant. It's in New Jersey, in Bloomfield, New Jersey. Apparently that booth itself, just the booth, was auctioned off and sold on eBay for $82,500. 82 G's. Where would you put this in your house? You just put it in your man cave?
Well, if I had $82,000 to spend on it, I bet I have a room for it.
You would have a room for it. That is very true.
It's gonna go out on a limb. If I'm dropping $82,000 on an auction, I got room in my house.
82 G's. He's a big fan of Sopranos. There you go. I mean, the restaurant I'm sure is shut down, or maybe they renovated the restaurant, got rid of it, and sold it. Whatever. That's wild.
I mean, it may have been a business too. Like maybe you could buy it and you put it in your restaurant or something, and you'd be like, "Hey, this is that."
Oh,
try
that's
and
true.
recoup your money. It's a business expense.
Yeah,
all that. It could. Do that
that's a good point. Yeah, real Sopranos fans that want to sit there and eat a meal or something like that. Good point, Patrick. I like that. Yeah, you got a very entrepreneurial mind, man. You got a business mind. You got one. The billionaire. Real quick, we got time for this Travis Kelce clip. He's telling the story about him interviewing with the Cowboys. I thought it was pretty cool. And turns out that Travis Kelce could have been a Dallas Cowboy if things had gone a little bit differently.
At the combine, I had some bad interviews. The Cowboys, they were kind of pressing me about having this red flag of missing a year.
Being suspended for a season?
Smoking weed. I don't know if I was having a bad morning. I basically was just, I don't even know if I want to say this.
Time out. What'd you say?
It ended really fast. I basically just said, if you guys think I'm going to be that kind of guy, or you're questioning if I'm still that person after everything that I've battled through to get to where I am now from missing a season, then you guys probably go somewhere else and pick somebody else.
And
that is exactly what they did.
They took your advice.
They did. They drafted Gavin Escobar. They drafted. So they were going to draft a tight end. Could have been Travis Kelce. Oh, I think Travis Kelce is better off, and I don't know if the Cowboys are, but Travis Kelce is better off because he ended up with Patrick Mahomes, so and Andy Reid, so he's good. He's good. All right, we come back. We'll go over the NFL stories. Right, there are a ton of NFL stories out there that we have not addressed, so we will hit all those NFL stories on the other side. We'll go into Rod's Round the Day, so we'll talk Cowboys and Rod's Round the Day, and the Longhorn baseball team will be facing off against the Aggies, so we got to discuss that, man. When that rivalry is rekindled, it's always a good time. All that more last hour of the show with my man Patrick Davis. I'm Rod Babers. This is the Rodcast right here on the Horn. Hey, what's up? What's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Let's talk about Dr. U. He's one of my favorite people in the world, actually, right now. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to Dr. U. You can call him Dr. Eckert if you want to, but we call him Dr. U around here. He's everybody's dentist here on the Horn, and we all have our own testimonials about what he's done for us. But I went to Dr. U just a couple of months ago. Went to Dr. U just for a checkup to make sure everything was going okay. I wanted to get everything cleaned. It had been a while since I'd been to the dentist, but I wanted to get checked up. I wanted to get get the teeth cleaned. We did that, but during the checkup, during some x-rays, Dr. Yu and his staff found that my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways, could have presented huge problems for me down the line. They wanted to take care of it, so they informed me about everything that was going down. I was knowledgeable about the process. They broke down all the details of the surgery, when I'll be back, my timeline, and I was actually back to work within 2 days after having that surgery. And it was Trust me, folks, it was could have been a dire situation. It was necessary, and that's what Dr. Yu can do. And I owe him a huge debt of gratitude, because I don't know where I'd be right now if I had waited a little bit longer to go to the dentist. Who knows what would have happened with those teeth? Could have been a serious situation, and you don't want to deal with that. You might have some dental anxiety. I had a little bit of it, but you don't have to worry about that with Dr. Yu. His staff will put you at ease. They will make sure that your dental appointment goes smooth, and it is, trust me, it is a something that you need to do, number one. But if you have that dental anxiety, don't worry about it. They specialize in being able to ease your dental anxiety, and also specialize in anything from general dentistry to teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, and veneers, dental implants, even a full mouth reconstruction, root canal therapy, having multiple wisdom teeth removed. It doesn't matter. The reason that you need to go to the dentist you need to visit is Dr. Yu. He does a great job of being in the, I think, always on the cutting edge of the technological advances in general dentistry. Every time I go there, there's a new technology, new type of procedure, new method that he's using. And that's all to make sure he's giving you the best quality dental care available. And that's what Dr. Eckert is all about. As a matter of fact, he can give you a brand new smile in just one day. Right now, permanently secured to your dental implants. You spend no time without teeth, get temporary fixtures until they complete your permanent smile, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, just don't freak out. Just call Dr. Greg Eckert to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures, a brand new smile in just one day. I know it sounds too good to be true. It's not. That's just Dr. Yu. That's how he does it, folks. It's a complimentary consultation. So you got nothing to lose, but you got everything to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life. And Dr. Yu wants to change your life for the better. He did it with me. He can do it with you. 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166, or visit dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com. Welcome back to another hour of the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday on the Rodcast, which means my man Patrick, the Idillionaire, playing jams that reached the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So you can learn a little something. My favorite musically themed day of the week. Also, you can reach out to my man Patrick Davis via the Twitterverse. He's at It's Patrick Davis in Twitterverse. I'm at Rod Babers in the Twitterverse. There's a lot of discussion on the text line, 512-447-3776. That is about the big fat poll of the day. A little inspired by the news that broke yesterday that the Denver Broncos were indeed expected to release Russell Wilson. And with that being said, the Russell Wilson trade now in retrospect is looking like one of the worst transactions, at least for the Broncos in the history of the NFL. So it got Patrick to thinking about really bad trades, really hurtful trades, and really how personal that can be when it's your team and they're trading away one of your favorite stars.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point of where you as a fan want to walk away from the team and where you want to get upset and you just bought a jersey of a guy and now he's playing for somebody else, or you've based your personality around this team and then that guy.
Kids' favorite players.
Kid's favorite player. You got your autographs on the wall and you're like, oh, no. And then they trade him to like a rival. The guy ends up on a team and now you got to root against him. Or maybe it's like the trade you trade for the guy you don't like. Like sometimes that works out. Sometimes it doesn't. When the Spurs end up with Robert Horry and you're like, oh, man, you killed us me with the Rockets. You killed me with the Lakers. Now I got to root for you. And then he did really well. And you're like, all right, I like Robert Horry a little bit more now. So some of those work out. Some of those don't.
You're right about that. I mean, and with the Texans, I can remember that with the DeAndre Hopkins trade. That was a big one. And that one did hurt a little bit because it didn't hurt because you were trading DeAndre Hopkins. I understood that, but you didn't get max value for him. Man, Bill O'Brien's probably the type. You said he was mentioned on the specs on the text line there. Bill O'Brien's probably mentioned by a lot of Texans fans because he had a few trades that were just not only questionable, they were just bad. I mean, just bad trades. But then we found out later on there was motivation behind him trading DeAndre Hopkins. Apparently, remember, he and DeAndre Hopkins weren't necessarily getting along.
Yeah, it was one of those things where Bill O'Brien has his morals and screw everybody else and all that. And he's bringing his baby mamas around. I'm like, and he's getting us wins, Bill. He's getting us wins.
That's what Michael Irvin implied, that the fact that he had multiple baby mamas was a bit of a turnoff for Bill O'Brien, that he didn't like him as a player and didn't kind of question his character as a result of that. Don't get me started. Anyway, but that is the big fat poll of the day. Shout out to my man Patrick for coming up with that. I do want to hit some of these NFL headlines because of the franchise tag deadline, which is today, I believe, at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. our time. There have been a lot of NFL stories that are coming out because you're starting to see more clarity leading up to the new league year about what teams are going to do. So there's the Russell Wilson news, Jason Kelsey retiring. That is huge news. L'Jarius Sneed, one of the best corners in the NFL for the Kansas City Chiefs, he's being franchise tagged, but they don't believe that's the end of that story. There's also Mike Evans resigning with the Bucs. What's that say about the Bucs and what they want to do with Baker Mayfield? We'll talk about that a little bit. And this is
also, don't forget, this is the time of the year. Everyone was just at the combine. All the agents were at the combine. All like the GMs are all at the combine. So a lot more clarity comes out this week where teams are aware of, okay, now we've kind of worked around. The agents can go to people and go, oh, well, we thought that deal was going to go through and all this stuff is not real. We're not negotiating, but we're talking. And they maybe at dinner say, yeah, I wouldn't count on this offer from us. So you get a lot of clarity
about that. It's a good point about that. Hell, the NFL knows that. That's why the NFL has a legal tampering period.
Yes.
They literally like, you know what? Let's just put it out there. You can legally tamper right now. The NBA, the players can't tamper. Remember, we know this now based on the NBA, CBA. Players cannot tamper. Only coaches and front office people can tamper. And I want to say the NFL has a similar. At least they have a similar, I don't know if it's in the CBA, but their philosophy is along those lines because Tom Brady never got in trouble for the stuff that he was doing with the Miami Dolphins and trying to become kind of Jackie Moon of the NFL. There's talk now about Kadarius Toney with the Kansas City Chiefs. There was some Jets players in some now deleted tweets who implied that he was sharing, information potentially with the Kansas City Chiefs, like game plan information, and then talked about how he was talking to the Chiefs coaches and how it kind of implied he may have been talking to the Chiefs front office or some front office execs while with the Jets about coming to the Kansas City Chiefs. If that's the case, it is indeed tampering. But if he's just talking to players about coming and the players are sending that message up to the front office and the coaches, that's technically not tampering.
Yep.
Because players have pre-existing relationships, so they can't tamper. Is the belief, and I think now that's kind of the new mentality among all the professional sports.
That's like in wrestling back in the day. There was the story of Kevin Nash, who became really famous. He was with WCW, and Shawn Michaels saw him. He's like, "Oh, I like that guy." And he talked to some of his wrestling friends that knew him, and they called him up, and the office says, "Well, we can't talk to him. We can't talk to him because he's under contract with the other organization." So they called him up, and we're basically like, "Would you be interested?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he go, "Well, we can't talk to you until you get released." He walked into the WCW office and said, "Hey, I'm done. I'm quitting wrestling. I need my release to get out of it." And they gave him his release. He faxed it at the WCW office to WWF to get, and they were like, "Cool, now we can negotiate."
Whoa.
And he was there like 2 weeks later. But that's the
that
kind
is
of
bold.
But that's that type of negotiating we're talking about. Of, well, the players can go and the players can talk to their general manager, but you can't have direct conversations. It's all. But once they check the phone records, like we never talked, we never met, we just happened to just talk to my guy.
Yeah, secondhand conversation. You know what? That's happening in college football too, or college sports. Period. Right? You don't need the coach to recruit. The coach just needs to talk to a player who has a relationship with that other player on that other team. Which these days with social media, they just slide into a DM.
Yeah.
Hey man, what's going on, man? You know what? I like you, man. You're a great player. I watched your film. You're fantastic. Would you like to come play for us? I mean, it's really simple to avoid tampering. It's kind of like tax evasion is illegal, but tax avoidance is legal. You can avoid your taxes, just don't evade them.
Yeah.
All right. So the same thing with tampering.
And you look at how many people
just don't do it as a coach or an executive.
Yeah, and you look how many people have podcasts now. These top players and everything. Well, I'm going to book you as a guest on my podcast, and now we can discuss in a room. We just talk for a little bit and see. Hey, man, do you have any interest in this? Or maybe, we'll see.
Yep. It's passing along messages to coaches and stuff like that. Trust me, it is just that easy, and it's happening everywhere. All right, so let's talk. We'll talk about the NFL because there's a lot of big NFL stories. We'll get you one more Horn headlines as well before we get out of here. We do have a Raj rant that will be Cowboys related. Raj rant. So we'll get into some sound from Dak Prescott, who finally spoke out about the all-in philosophy the Cowboys have now, and also spoke about his contract extension that he is pretty confident that it's going to get done. So we'll talk about that, and we'll hear from Jerry Jones. We'll also hear from Rich Eisen, who threw out a rumor that he had heard about Trey Lance from the Combine. We'll throw that out there too, because he goes over his top 5 rumors that he overheard at the NFL Combine, and one of them, of course, is about the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll get into all of that when we go into Raj rant of the day. All right, before we get started, let's do the Horn headlines, and then we'll come back and get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets.
All right, Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Texas basketball dropped a tough game on the road to Baylor 93-85 last night. Texas led for the first 33 minutes of play, but a late surge from Baylor, led by Jalen Bridges with 32 points, allowed Baylor to take and maintain the lead for the rest of the game. The bigger story coming from the game, though, was Texas star forward Dylan Dessou exited the game after a scary knee injury, which he did not return to the game. Early reports on Dessou were that it was a knee sprain, and Dessou was able to rejoin the bench in the final minutes of the game. No crutches, no knee brace. So a positive sign there. Texas plays their final game of the regular season on Saturday at home against Oklahoma. Elsewhere, the Broncos have reportedly informed Russell Wilson that they'll be releasing him at the start of the new league year. Broncos will take on $85 million in dead cap over the next 2 seasons. The Broncos had signed Wilson to a 5-year, $242 million extension after trading for him 2 years ago in a deal including 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 3 players. That's a lot. That's a mouthful there. Russell Westbrook underwent surgery for a broken hand on Monday with hopes he will be able to return for a playoff run. Westbrook has been one of the top 6 men in the league for the Clippers, who are currently the 4 seed in the Western Conference with just under 6 weeks to go in the season. And finally, Eagles center Jason Kelce announced his retirement yesterday after a Hall of Fame career that included 7 Pro Bowl selections and being named the first team All-Pro 6 times. The 2011 6th-round selection played his entire career with the Eagles. Philadelphia will now start the search for their next center and a new locker room leader with the exit of Kelce and presumed retirement of Fletcher Cox, 2 stalwarts of the Eagles for the past decade. We will also throw in Tanner Witt, expected to take the mound for the Longhorns tonight against the Aggies undefeated, 11-0 on the season, number 4 team in the country, coming to Dish Falk tonight. Going to be a great matchup. You will be able to check out tonight of the Longhorns and Aggies rivalry renewed before the rivalry is renewed for real next season. That is your Horn Headlines, presented by Top Gun Rental and Lawn Equipment.
Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Come enjoy food, beer, and the best deals of the year on all zero-turn mowers and steel lawn equipment in stock at both locations, March 22nd and 23rd. TopGun.net. We'll shoot you straight.
Yeah, anytime the Aggies are coming to town, it's gonna be wow. That's gonna be a crazy environment at UFC Dish Falk Field,
especially when they're undefeated.
Be packed.
They're 11-0 coming in. I mean, they haven't played a lot of big teams, but they're undefeated.
Yeah, they should be confident too. I mean, they're, depending on what poll you're looking at, you got them at that number 4 poll. They're top 10 or a top 5 team, and as long as the Longhorns pitch a lot better than they did this past weekend, they'll at least make this thing competitive. But the pitching staff last weekend, when they lost those 3 games at Minute Maid, they had a 9.69 ERA in the 3 games, allowing 8 home runs.
That's not great.
That's not great at all. So that's the biggest issue right now for the Longhorns. They had a strong offensive weekend. They were scoring points. They averaged 8 runs per game in those 3 losses. They had 9 total home runs in those 3 losses. They were scoring points. The offense was not the issue. The pitching was the issue.
Yeah.
And against the Aggies, there's a reason they're undefeated. They're one of the better teams in the country. Longhorns got to figure that out.
Yeah, we'll see what Tanner Witt does tonight. He basically got to start in that first series of the year, pitched okay in the first inning, came back in the second, and could not find the strike zone. So he was pulled out there. He's done a couple of relief appearances since then, but has not got another start until tonight against the Aggies, coming off that major surgery. So hopefully Tanner Witt will get back on track tonight. But yeah, I think David Pierce has been trying to preach the motto that we saw at the Nationals ballpark this spring. That was, I don't care how fast ball 4 was. I think he's been trying to pitch. You got to pitch strikes, and that can get you in trouble. And so they were not they're not walking guys necessarily this weekend, but they were letting a lot of hits get through. So we'll see if Tanner Witt can get him back on track tonight.
Before we get into Raj's rant of the day, let's talk about the big news in the NFL about Russell Wilson. You mentioned in the headlines there, Russell Wilson expected to be released. The amount of dead money that the Broncos are gonna have to eat in terms of that dead money. And dead money, for those who don't know, that's basically money you're paying to a guy who's not even on your roster. So it's that's kind of that dead money, and they're gonna split it up.
Yeah, we'll say dead money for people to know is basically the money you've already paid him, but has not hit your salary cap yet. So signing bonuses, those types of things, that's what ends up in dead cap. So it's not necessarily all his salary is the guaranteed money, but you already paid him a signing bonus, and you said, well, we'll count that in our cap in a couple of years. When you trade him, that cap money still stays there. So that's why the $85 million is still there, because he has not even started his $242 million extension. That starts this season.
That's the bad part of it, is that he hadn't really started the extension. And in 2024, it's going to be a $35 million cap hit and 49, I think, in 2025, and he's off the books in 2026. So they got to eat it for the next 2 years. But then after that, they should be able to kind of wipe the slate clean and start fresh towards their salary cap. But the opportunity cost, right, when you bring in a guy like Russell Wilson and it doesn't work out, not only do you trade players away and trade away picks, I mean, you trade away 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a 5th. And I believe you ended up getting a 4th in return, a 4th and Russell Wilson in return for that. And then there's the salary cap hell you put yourself in because you signed him to an extension that he is not even going to play under. It was so many bad decisions and miscalculations by the Denver Broncos franchise. Not only the signing of trading for Russell Wilson, which didn't work out, one of the worst trades now in NFL history. But then there's the contract you just signed, the extension, which isn't going to work out, putting you in salary cap hell. And then on top of that, the Nathaniel Hackett hiring. Don't forget about that. Don't forget about hiring somebody that people believe basically was incompetent as a coach. And he also set your franchise back. So even when Sean Payton came in there, I think they wanted him to come in as a coach who could potentially fix those issues. Essentially, Sean Payton told you, I can't fix this. I can't fix it. I'm a great coach. There's no fixing this. He's got to go. All right. And now this is the second franchise that's decided Russell Wilson's got to go. that he was our franchise quarterback, but now we'd rather eat the dead money in the dead cap and rebuild rather than have Russell Wilson as our starting quarterback. Has this hurt Russell Wilson's legacy to the point where, I mean, this is a guy at one point that had a trajectory. He was headed toward being a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And now there's no, I don't think he has a shot of being a Hall of Famer now. Maybe I'm wrong. He could resurrect his career somewhere. But have we seen that's a hell of a fall for grace for Russell Wilson in a really short time span.
It was. And it was that he wanted, I'm sure it wasn't just money, but different concessions with the Seahawks. That I'm sure they would have been fine starting him if he didn't ask for all the money. But they said, all right, we can find a trade. And if we're going to get 2 firsts and 2 seconds and all of this and not have to pay you the contract, well, that's smarter for us to do because we understand you probably only got 3 or 4 good years left in you. And then he goes to Denver. We hear all the stories that basically he then is let loose out of the reins of Pete Carroll to have his own office and his own basic floor he's on the coach's floor and away from the team. And, is allowed to have all his own personal things. He's being treated like Tom Brady at a point, and he had not earned that ability. And so you see all of this come through. Now, I do think it's, the Hall of Fame career is not over because if he goes somewhere else and, revitalizes his career and it was really just that was a bad 2-year stint of his career and he comes back and has 3 or 4 more successful years, makes another run or 2 in the playoffs, then, he could get back in that conversation. But I don't think anybody's expecting that at this point. The big question is, how much is he willing to come back and play for now that he has guaranteed money on him, that he doesn't necessarily need to make the money? Is he willing to go somewhere like the Falcons or the Steelers or the Raiders or one of those teams that need a quarterback, may not be able to get one high enough in the draft, and say, well, I'll come in for $5-10 million a year and you're going to be able to spend money in all these other places. And if you have a coach like the Steelers are one of the most interesting ones because you have Mike Tomlin, and is he able to get him and put the culture on track and not let him get too far off track? I'd be curious to see if he could come back and be, a good enough quarterback once again to fit into a system and do what he does.
We haven't seen a quarterback have really a trajectory like that where they start with one organization on their way to being a Hall of Famer, totally bomb with the team that they're either traded to or gets picked them up as a free agent, however they're acquired. They bomb with the second team, and then a third team, they come back and basically pick up where they left off with their Hall of Fame career path with the first team. Brett Favre actually did do something like that. Remember, he went to the Jets, had a disastrous tenure with the Jets after having a Hall of Fame career with the Green Bay Packers, and then goes to Minnesota and almost goes to an NFC title game, I believe, and has a great couple of years with Minnesota potentially. I got to go back and see the stats and see how great it was. But he did something very similar. But you usually don't see many examples of a quarterback with that type of path. Hall of Fame career path, then falls off, has to fall from grace, and then is able to reinvent themselves with a third team.
No, I mean, you don't even see that much of the Baker Mayfield, which is a lower level of that, which is a guy who is a starting quarterback, and then he was running defensive drills on the scout team with Carolina, then comes and gets thrown into the Rams, and then ends up on the Bucs and makes a playoff run with the Bucs. Like it's a lower end because he was never a Hall of Fame trajectory. But at the same point, that's rare. So to do it at a higher level is even more rare.
No, I'm with you. I don't know who's gonna pick him up. I like your suggestion about the Steelers. He's definitely got to take a pay cut. I mean, Russell Wilson is, if you go look at it, he's one of the 2, I think, described as dual threat quarterbacks to actually win a Super Bowl. I don't think there have been 2, in my opinion, that have won a Super Bowl, and that's Russell Wilson and Steve Young. Even if you look at the top 37 quarterbacks to average 20 rushing yards per game since 1966 who have won a Super Bowl, it's still only 3 guys. It's Russell Wilson, Steve Young, and the third actually will surprise some people, Patrick Mahomes. He's not your traditional dual threat quarterback, but in the playoffs, he always runs more. He becomes a dual threat quarterback in the playoffs, but he's not one in the regular season.
Yeah.
He loves to run in the playoffs. He always extend the play. He'll always keep a play alive. He'll scramble. He's more likely to scramble in the playoffs. I was shocked to see that if you look at all the quarterbacks who have been able to, since 1966, who've been able to average 20 rushing yards per game, only 3 of them won Super Bowls. Those are considered, they're not necessarily dual threats, because I don't consider Patrick Mahomes a dual threat. I do think Steve Young and Russell Wilson are dual threat quarterbacks, the only 2 to ever win a Super Bowl. And, I thought Russell Wilson was on his way to potentially being a Hall of Famer in that respect. And that is not the case. Not the case at all after that disastrous showing with the Denver Broncos. So there you go. Looks like Russell Wilson will be looking for a new home. How about this? In less than 2 years, 2 teams decided they'd rather eat a total of basically $111 million in total dead cap rather than have Russell Wilson on their roster.
Yeah, that's now. I will say in perspective, Seattle got a haul for him. So that dead cap versus 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 3 players, that dead cap's not that bad. Like that was a deal for them that they came out of this smelling like the roses. I don't know if that was fully, we have to get rid of Russ, as much as if the right deal comes along, then it makes sense for us to get rid of Russ. Now,
no, they want to get rid of Russ. And other reports are that Russ, the same stuff he was pulling with Denver, he started to pull with them. He wanted to go and want to get guys fired. He was trying to get, remember, there's a report he was trying to get Pete Carroll fired, him or me. He was pulling some of some power plays with the Seattle Seahawks. So they wanted to get rid of him, but you're right, the price had to be right because he was a franchise QB.
Now, in Denver, the price is extremely wrong. I did love, did you see Denver try 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago to drop I don't know, maybe he's a starter still. Maybe we'll bring him back. Maybe we'll have that whole conversation to see if they get any interest for a trade, to get anything back from him before they cut him. And, they're picking up the phone. They're like, hey, I don't know. We're probably keeping Russ, but maybe if you're interested. And every team just don't call me. Don't.
They're like, we know you're not keeping him. We see the numbers. We see your salary cap numbers. Like, no way you keeping this dude.
Don't play on my phone.
How about this? Before we go to the break, and we can pick up Rod's rant on the other side. Here's the top single-year dead cap hits in NFL history. Russell Wilson at $49.6 million. Matt Ryan second at $40.5 million. Aaron Rodgers third at $40.3 million. Russell Wilson fourth at $35.4 million. Tom Brady fifth, $35.1 million. Carson Wentz, he is sixth at $33.8 million. And then there's Russell Wilson again at $26 million. 3 of the top 7 single year dead cap hits in NFL history are one guy, Russell Wilson. Because it seems like teams, they pay him because the expectations are high, and they think he's going to be the savior of the franchise. And then it's like they get to know him and they decide, you know what, I'd rather eat that dead cap money than have you as our quarterback any longer. I don't know what's going on with Russell Wilson and why he's so unattractive once teams are basically, once they sign him to these big deals. But they'd rather eat that dead cap than keep him on that roster any while longer. And that's really, really troubling if you're a Russell Wilson. So that's Russell Wilson news. We'll get to some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets on the other side. Jason Kelsey, we'll hear from him. He's retiring. We'll also hear from Jerry Jones and Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott speaking for the first time about the contract extension and how he feels about the negotiation right now going on with the Cowboys. We'll talk about that, all that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast, featuring my man Patrick Davis. I am lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, and right here on the Horn. Back into some other NFL topics. So Jerry Jones has made headlines here in the offseason talking about or discussing the all-in philosophy for the Cowboys. He's also talked about Dak Prescott's contract status. Usually you don't see a franchise quarterback play on the last year of their deal or in a contract year. Usually the extension is signed before that, and the Cowboys still may get it done. But Jerry Jones has said this offseason they don't need to get a deal done with Dak, which means they could allow Dak to play on the last year of his contract in a contract year. Remember, also, you don't have an extension with your head coach. He's a lame duck coach right now. And Mike Zimmer signed on and all of his assistants on 1-year deals. Seems like everybody's in a contract year for the Cowboys. So Dak Prescott recently at a charity function, he was asked about the Cowboys all-in philosophy, number one, and also was asked about his contract status with the Cowboys. Here is Dak Prescott.
What does all in mean? When Jerry says all in, what does that mean to you as far as next year?
When he says all in on next year?
Yeah. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I've heard that one. Yeah, I'm excited to see it, honestly. I don't know. I can't say I've had talks with them about what is all in and how you plan on making these moves. So, but yeah, let's see. I'm excited for it.
How hopeful are you that you can get a deal done?
Say again?
How hopeful are you that you can get a deal done?
Yeah, I'm definitely confident. Obviously, it helps the team. It's important for the numbers. So I think I've heard Jerry said that. It's kind of helped out here and told me that part, right? That that is a process. Both sides understand that. Everything's great. I know it happens.
So he's confident that it'll happen. He doesn't know what all in means. You're not the only one, Dak. We're all a little confused about what Jerry's definition of all in means. I think even Jerry's a little confused about it because he keeps having to clarify what all in means. Once again, here's another clip of Jerry Jones having to clarify what his definition of all in is.
You sound good.
So you could have a free agent rather than have that free agent would cost you as much as 3 other players would cost you. Well, we're going to be all in with the 3 other players.
But
that's all in. That's my point.
So I think now he's saying all in means we're paying the guys that we drafted. We like our guys. That's the guy would say, oh, we like our guys. They like their guys. They're going to pay their guys. So the Cowboys have never really been a team that makes a lot of moves at the beginning of free agency. Usually they make their moves at the end of free agency where they get better value. So they don't like to pay top-notch dollars for free agents. They usually build through the draft. They're the most homegrown team in the NFL, then undrafted free agents, then the trade market, which they've done a better job of talent acquisition and trade market, and then free agency. That's how they operate. I don't think Jerry Jones is going to change whether he should or shouldn't, but they should exhaust all means to improve the roster, upgrade the roster, and acquire talent. I think they have different means of acquisition that they favor, and they don't really mess with free agency unless it is a necessity for them. That's basically what it comes down for the Cowboys.
No, it is. And it's funny when he says that, though, because we can have 3 guys for the price of 1. And you're like, the 3 that you're saying, if you're saying the 3 we think you're saying, which is Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're all going to take top dollar. Like, they're not giving you the 3 for 1 deal. Believe me. None of those guys are giving you the 3 for 1. So I don't know. It's a weird way of stating, but I think it's basically at the bigger point. What he meant at the beginning was we're all in. We will do what we have to do to keep this team together. We're not going to we're not going to Amari Cooper. We're not going to do that again, I think is what he meant. All in for him is we're not going to trade CeeDee Lamb or Micah Parsons because they want a lot of money. And I think for Dallas fans, that's not going to be good enough. I don't think Dallas fans are thrilled to hear, okay, you're going to do the bare minimum then. This is
pretty much.
You're doing the bare minimum of a competitive team. That's not all in. That's the bare minimum of trying to stay competitive. Those are vastly 2 different things. And I get you can keep players for cheaper than signing them. That's true. But if the player's not as good, that's why the other player's more expensive.
Yeah, that is not all in. That's just a tip.
that's like saying
right
when we can keep Jonathan Hankins and Mozzie Smith for the price of Chris Jones. And we're like, yeah, But it's Chris Jones.
It's Chris freaking Jones. It's Junk Jones, damn it. He's all in. All right, so the Cowboys did, like we said, they have pursued the trade market recently, and one of the players they traded for was Trey Lance. And I think everybody was excited about them trading for Trey Lance. Well, here is Rich Eisen, who yesterday went over his top 5 rumors that he overheard at the combine in some way, form, or fashion. And here is Rich Eisen proposing a very interesting trade scenario for the Dallas Cowboys and one Trey Lance.
The coach, Kevin O'Connell, in our booth this weekend, and I asked him, it's funny, he said to me the day before when I saw him, he goes, you get one Kirk Cousins question. Did I tell you this on the air?
Yeah.
Okay. You get one Kirk Cousins question. So my question was, what are you willing to share? Where do things stand right now? And he was very honest. He said he thinks that Cousins is a process guy, and he's going to go through the process of free agency. And so before he said that, I heard this rumor that a possible salve at quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings is a native of the state, and his name is Trey Lance.
Whoa.
Trey Lance is a possible solve for the Vikings. Now, the Cowboys picked up, kept him on the roster long enough for him to get a bonus. So they're paying the money to keep him. And they, as you know, got him for a 5. I'm just wondering if the Vikings flip him a 3, a Friday night pick. Do they go ahead and do that?
Whoa.
That Trey Lance, as we all know, you also have to pick up a 5th-year option. I'm just saying.
Wow.
That a possibility out there, kids from the state, as we all know, and that might be an answer.
There you go. Actually, I'm not surprised by a team still being interested in Trey Lance. Listen, Trey Lance, he's 20. He'll turn. I think he's younger than Bo Nix and Michael Penix.
Yeah.
Like, he is really young, and he hasn't had a lot of pass attempts in his career. Remember, he didn't throw they didn't throw the football a lot when he was coming out of high school. I think he was like a linebacker or something. And then in college, he was in a running offense mostly, and then they didn't throw the ball a lot. He's a developmental project. He's really young. If the Cowboys indeed believe Cooper Rush is their backup and he offers them a better option than Trey Lance, yeah, flip him. Flip him for potentially a 3rd-round pick. Now, I don't think the Minnesota Vikings have a 3rd-round pick, but this year, but they can trade him for a 3rd-round pick in the future. This actually may be a good move for the Cowboys, and it will show them as an organization, you should acquire quarterbacks, whether it be drafting them, whether it be trading for them, whether that be acquiring them in free agency, because you can always flip them. Worst case scenario if you need to.
Yeah, and by the way, we mentioned a couple of rookies that we said could be that the Cowboys, could be later round picks. Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis, both born in 2000, just like Trey Lance, are all 23 years old. So
I like that.
Trey Lance actually 7 days younger than Jordan Travis.
That's crazy. See, that's why he's still got a lot of upside, guys. He's still so young. He's still a baby. And we've seen more and more non-traditional pass for quarterbacks now than we've ever seen, right? You brought up Baker Mayfield. He's won playoff games for 2 different franchises. Geno Smith, breakout year in year, 8 or 9? What the hell is that? Jared Goff, franchise quarterback for one team. We dump him. We're done. He's going to be a bridge quarterback for the Detroit Lions. Nope. Turns out going to be a franchise quarterback again. We're starting to see now more stories of quarterbacks' skill sets being rejuvenated, resuscitated, even after everybody gave up on them. And I think that's good news for guys like Russell Wilson, I guess, too, but also, for Trey Lance. I think it's good news for me. He ends up with the right system. You could get the best out of Trey Lance. I mean, look at Tua. People thought Tua was a lost cause. Tua gets with Mike McDaniel, the right system. Boom, Tua has a breakout year.
I think
we're starting to see more of those stories.
Jordan Love's 25.
Wow.
So Jordan Love, we sat behind Aaron Rodgers for a few years, started, the games he played before, people didn't necessarily think he was going to be a top guy. And then he has the issues where he, doesn't start the season great. Everyone thinks he's a lost cause, but he's 2 years older than Trey Lance. So if you throw that in there, there is hope that Trey Lance is a guy. I think that's why I was happy with the trade last year. I thought it was a good trade. Big issue is with me, I'd like them to draft a quarterback and have Trey Lance and have that 3 quarterbacks. I get people like Cooper Rush. I get he's great for 8 to 10 quarters. So he may get you 8 to 10 quarters out of a season where he's going to play good football until people adjust to him, and it's going to start going downhill for the Cowboys. But I at a certain point, you can't keep 4 quarterbacks on your roster. So you have to make the decision. Is Trey Lance just your project, or are you going to draft another quarterback? I would assume at this point you're going to keep Trey Lance and he's going to be your project. or if you get enough, if they offer a second or a third for him, if Minnesota does that, then you may say, well, cool, we weren't going to develop him anyway, and we'll move on. This also goes into the fact that Mike McCarthy is your lame duck coach. That are you letting him pick a quarterback for you, or that next piece, if you're not sure he's going to be your guy next year?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think that especially with the NFL now having to play more, they're playing more games, but as a result of that, we're seeing more and more quarterbacks play, more backup quarterbacks, more third string quarterbacks. I'm not opposed to keeping 3 quarterbacks on your roster, but I'm with you. Figure out who your developmental project is, figure out who your backup is, and then you can build the roster accordingly. But the Cowboys have a bad organizational habit of not drafting quarterbacks. They've drafted the fewest quarterbacks in the NFL since 1999. I think it is a healthy organizational trait to be drafting quarterbacks every other year, to be acquiring quarterbacks. That's what, the Green Bay Packers, of course, they're famous for it. But hell, man, even San Fran has done that. That's how they ended up with a Brock Purdy, right? Hell, the Kansas City Chiefs, how they get a Patrick Mahomes. I think every now and then you got to look to just draft a quarterback, because you never know what you're going to get until you get those guys on your roster and you get them into a practice, and then you can break down their skill set. So there you go, Cowboys. A lot of news surrounding the Dallas Cowboys as always, and we'll see what they do with the Dak Prescott contract negotiation. All right, we'll come back. We got Who Said That actually will lead us into a conversation about another NFL player who had big news yesterday, Jason Kelce retiring. We'll hear from Jason Kelce, and then we'll wrap this thing up and put it in the oven. This is the Rodcast right here on the Horn. It is a top of the charts Tuesday right here on the Rodcast, and that's why my co-host Patrick Davis is called the Idea. He always comes up with these really creative ideas, and it's my favorite musically themed day of the week. That's when Patrick plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. Oh, this was the jam back in the day. This is the jam. And all I can see now when this song plays is Tom Cruise's character on Tropic Thunder, right? Is the song that he dances to at the end?
I think it is.
Oh man, it's the only thing I can see is that character. And honestly, Tom Cruise needs to do more comedic cameos because he knocked that one out of the park. That was such a great cast, honestly. And honestly, it was one of the last movies you can make like that because it was so insensitive. I mean, you had Robert Downey Jr. doing blackface in that
full
movie.
Blackface, yes,
full blackface, and not only full blackface. I think he was nominated for like an Oscar.
I think, there was that, and then you had
he was nominated for an Oscar for that.
Ben Stiller did the full. He went full R word.
Oh yeah, you're right. You can't ever go full. Yes, think about that movie. You cannot make that movie these days, guys. That movie might be the last inappropriate movie that was just so politically incorrect. I don't even know if they can stream it. I don't even know if you can stream it these days.
I'm sure you can. I bet it's somewhere.
You got to own that movie, man, because I bet they're probably taking some parts out of it. Have you watched The Office on, I want to say The Office where you stream it? They've taken some stuff out of the old episodes.
The stuff that did not age well?
Insensitive. Yeah, they've taken some stuff out, dog.
Yeah,
man.
There's stuff in the early episodes of that you can watch and you go, knowing the time that it came from, this isn't insensitive at all. It's not a thing. But if you don't know the time, it comes off really, really badly. And how the show evolved, it's not how the character is anymore. So you're like, oh, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, man, that was nuts. Anyway, but I think Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, he got a nomination for Best Supporting Actor in blackface. You cannot do that these days. I will say this: he was hilarious. He was freaking hilarious in it. You can do it, but you better make sure you funny, because if you ain't, oh man, you gonna get canceled. And Robert Downey Jr. still making movies, baby, still making movies. All right, can we got time for one? Who said that?
Let's hit our sounder.
Who had been saying that? Who said that?
Yeah, we'll play the game.
Who said that? Who said that?
Nice. Okay, so who said this? Hopefully we got it edited. If not, have the dump button ready there.
I got it edited. I got you.
You got it. All right, here you go. Who said that?
I won't forget Nick Foles having the game of his life on the biggest stage possible. And the biggest on the team going up to Doug Peterson and asking for the Philly special. And Doug Peterson having the biggest balls in the stadium. Say, yeah, let's do it.
That was one of the greatest clips from a retirement speech in the history of sports, ladies and gentlemen. Big blank Nick Foles, baby. Oh, man.
He literally said two things you're not supposed to say at a retirement speech and then started crying.
He got emotional.
I love that he was like, well, I'll make this funny and so it won't be as emotional. Like, he wrote it and it was like, no, if I make this kind of funny, then it'll take the emotion out of it. And right after and then Doug Peterson, it's amazing. That is an amazing, and it's perfect for him. He also did this in a sleeveless t-shirt. He was sleeveless when he gave his retirement speech as well,
there you go.
Which is very on brand for Jason Kelce.
It is all that was on brand. All that, you know what? If somebody told you that's how Jason Kelce went out, you go, yeah, actually that fits. I mean, that's not out of character at all. So shout out to Jason Kelce. He's a Hall of Famer. There's no question about it. He's one of the greatest centers in the history of the NFL. So shout out to him. By the way, it's going to change Philly though. That tush push, guys, a lot of that tush push was him. He was one half of it. It was him and then Jalen Hurts, and the Hall of Fame center with Jalen Hurts, a unique powerlifting quarterback. That's what made that tush push, or the brotherly shove, whatever they want to call it. That's what made it so effective. It will not be as effective. Matter of fact, it wasn't even that effective this year as it was in previous years, but it won't be effective. They might as well stop doing it now, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it'll still work because it works as first downs when you're like a yard out. It works remarkably well, but As far as picking up 4 yards per carry, like where they were doing with it,
Yes,
that's
like
gone.
4th and 3, and they're like, all right, let's not put 2 sports.
I think that's over.
Jason Gill's second. I mean, he was a 6th round pick. We forget that too. 6th round pick. Behind Tom Brady, he might be the greatest 6th round pick of all time. Right, Tom Brady, 6th round pick too? Yeah. All right. I want to thank my man Patrick. Patrick, as always, brother, you were fantastic. You are the real MVP. I want to thank all of the folks out there listening and the folks out there watching. We appreciate it. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on another edition of the Rodcast. For my co-host Patrick Davis, for myself, remember, folks, enjoy the week, enjoy the day, and go vote. Go vote. That's important. That's important. Peace.